All right, welcome to the Krueger Show after NBA Finals, game number 3. And, man, this series is all Denver. They're up 2-1. They easily could be up 3-0, but it's 2-1 Denver tonight. The Nuggets get it done in Miami, and it wasn't close. 109-94. Denver pulled away. I mean, this thing was even at the end of one quarter. Denver took a 5-point lead at the half. Denver up that lead to 14 at the end of the third quarter and cruised home 109-94. Welcome to the Krueger Show. Larry Krueger, Cyrus Satsis, Damon Bruce joins us, Big Frank Red in the house. And, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're going to get into the Warriors offseason. We're going to even talk a little bit about Trey Lance before we get out of here. But NBA Finals, Game 3 goes to the Nuggets, fellas, and it looks like the Nuggets series. This I don't know how Miami gets back in it. Let's go around the horn here and talk a little bit about what your takeaways were. Damon, we'll start with you. This game was close early, but man, third quarter, Nuggets go on a quick run. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope hit a jump shot early in the third quarter. It gave Denver a 16-point lead there in the third. They really didn't look back from there. Give me your takeaway on the game and maybe more so the series.
Well, the series is essentially over, and the takeaway from tonight's game is you had two teammates drop triple-doubles in the same game. Murray was outstanding, and Nikola Jokic was historically outstanding. He just tonight, what we just witnessed, considering it's an NBA Finals game, and anything you do in an NBA Finals game, by definition, is more important than anything you could do in any other type of basketball game. Tonight, Nikola Jokic just played one of the single greatest basketball games ever seen by a human on this planet. There's no other way to say it. There's no other way to try to frame it. He was otherworldly. There are no other humans who have really ever done what he's done in a game. He was extraordinary tonight, and Jamal Murray is every bit the running buddy that a great player needs to go ahead and go on and win a title. The great ones make it look easy. Jokic made it look so easy tonight, and this Nuggets in 5 prediction that I threw out a long time ago is still tracking. I feel good about it. Miami can't like their chances after getting out-hustled and outworked on their home court. Winner of Game 3 is always pivotal. We know that. The Nuggets are absolutely in control of this series now.
Yeah, I mean, at halftime, by the way, I totally agree with your take, Damon, as far as one of the great games ever for Jokic. At halftime, gentlemen, Jokic had 14, 12 boards, 7 assists. Frank, give us your perspective on this one, man. It just seems like Miami's cooked.
Jokic is the best player in the league. I mean, he's the best player in the world, and he played like that tonight. I don't think Miami is cooked. I mean, I see it going at least 6 games, and we'll find out in Game 4 if Denver is listening to their coach. Because I believe the game was won in the first quarter when they matched Miami's intensity. The score was 24-24. They're clearly the better team. So all they had to do was match Miami's intensity, and they exceeded Miami's intensity. Aaron Gordon is a player that you don't have to coach up to play hard. So he came out and did what he normally does. KCP did not make ridiculous fouls tonight. And their 2 stars played like stars. Now, if you look at Miami, every now and then, I'm going to use this analogy. You go into the kitchen and mom's making a great soup, a great dish, and you take the spoon and you get a little bit of it to see how it tastes. Miami did that against Jamal Murray. When Jamal Murray comes off the high pick and roll on the elbow, one-on-one, he's unstoppable. But when Miami wanted to blitz him and take the ball out of his hands, they were able to do it. But it didn't really matter tonight because they were down so much. I guarantee you in Game 4, they're not going to allow him to come off that high pick and roll one-on-one. There's going to be another defender there, and somebody else is going to have to perform for Denver. Jokic, you're not going to stop him. But I think that you're going to see a different ball game out of Jamal Murray, and we'll have a better idea of whether or not this series is over. Right now, it's really, really competitive. Both teams, I was very, very impressed with the conditioning of both teams. And they listened to Michael Malone. They didn't listen to him before. That's coaching. That's his impact. And it's right now, it's just really a beautiful series to watch.
Cy, give me your thoughts. What did you think of the series? By the way, Denver was plus 25 on the glass. How many games you seen all year where a team out-rebounded another team by 25 rebounds? I mean, that's incredible. Cy, what'd you think?
Yeah, tough act to follow. Good to see you all. Been a little while. You're all absolutely correct. All I can add to that hopefully is different. First of all, I'm a little surprised that Michael Porter Jr. is still struggling. He's been struggling this entire NBA Finals. His shot is just virtually non-existent. So for the Nuggets to overcome that was impressive. I totally agree that this was what Jokic did tonight, and what Jokic has been doing this entire postseason is just insane. It really is, man. It's just it's among the all-time great performances we've ever seen. By the way, Christian Braun was the number 21 pick in the draft last year. 21. And he just turned 22 years old. The Nuggets struck gold with this kid, man. No pun intended. I mean, he's like literally, not literally, maybe literally their best bench player. I mean, in tonight's game, for example, 19 minutes, scored 15 points, was 7 for 8 from the field. It's just, so this kid has just been really just impressive coming off the bench, and given he's a rookie. One thing that stuck out to me was what Mark Jackson said during the broadcast, because it made me think, and I love when people do that. He started like pontificating about how Jokic would have fared if he played in older eras. And I've been thinking about that too. Like, how would he fare playing against Wilt? How would he fare playing against Shaq? How would he fare against Russell, against Hakeem? The all-time greats. I think he would hold his own. I don't know if he's better than those guys, at least not yet, but it's just what he's doing is damn impressive. That's all there is to say, I think. Let's
use that as a launch point. What do you think is the best part of Jokic's game? Because to me, I just think that when you can get him, he kind of reminds me in some ways, I know this is going to be crazy to say this. He reminds me a little bit of Chris Paul in that he breaks teams down by getting in the middle of the floor, and he can shoot it. He can drive it, he can pass it, or he can find somebody on the perimeter. He's so dangerous in the middle of the floor. And you get him at the free throw line, top of the key, anywhere in the middle of the floor, and he's able to like keep his dribble, find people on the perimeter. His passing is incredible, but it's like he's a hard player to put pressure on when he gets the ball in the middle of the floor. Just him having it kind of reminds me of Chris Paul. The way Paul used to be able to kind of break teams down by holding the ball in the middle of the floor and having that kind of triple threat option. I know it's a weird comparison because the size difference is dramatic, but to me, that's the part of Jokic's game that is, I think, otherworldly. And if how did you defeat Paul? The same way I think you could defeat Jokic is I think you can't allow anybody who has that shooting, passing, dribbling option in the middle of the floor to have time. I think they're operating on their own timetable, and I think you've got to force them to operate on your timetable, and that's hard to do, but you know what I'm saying? You can't allow Jokic to get the ball at the free throw line and survey the entire floor. You got to force him to make that decision quickly. How do you do it, though?
But he's such a good passer, you blitz him at your own risk. I mean, all he needs to do is kick it out to Jamal Murray, and you're looking at a guy who's a dead-eye shooter so far in this postseason, and you could be in trouble right there. I mean, the great thing about Jokic is there is no singular great thing about him. He is so highly skilled in all the tools that a basketball player really needs to have in their tool belt. And, I mean, this was a note before tonight's game even played. So you can add, 30 points, 20 rebounds, and 10 assists to these numbers. But Nikola Jokic became the third player in NBA postseason history with a 500, 200, 150 single playoff run. That's points, rebounds, and assists. The only other players who have ever done that are LeBron James, who has done it 4 times impressively in his career, and the 1987 version of Larry Bird, which is just like peak nostalgia, great basketball for so many basketball fans. Jokic, I saw this from Hollinger again tonight.
And that what the Celtics, by the way, not to interrupt you, didn't win that year, but that's, Larry was on top of his game right there.
Yeah, just peak of his powers, Larry Bird right there. Jokic was 30, 20, and 10 for the third time in this postseason. So Nikola Jokic has 30, 20, and 10 games. The rest of every other player in NBA basketball history has 2 of those. I mean,
say that again.
John Hollinger, 30, 20, 10 games in the postseason. Nikola Jokic, 3. Every other player in the history of basketball, 2.
Wow.
Well, let me say this. That's impressive, by the way, obviously. I mean, we all have the luxury of being old enough to have watched some of the greatest centers in the history of the NBA. And beyond Abdul-Jabbar, he's as good as anybody's ever played as an offensive player. Now, take this into consideration. This is a small ball era. There's nobody on the court even close to his size. So he's a good rebounder. He's not the best rebounding big that we've ever seen. He's a very good rebounder. But offensively, with the exception of Jabbar, because Jabbar was unstoppable when he was in his prime with his hook, there's never been a player who has been as skilled as he is offensively. So he's an all-time great. And Mark put out a great question. And the only thing that I can say is if you took this era officials back then he would do what he's doing right now. If you allow people to beat the crap out of him and then not call fouls when he's clearly getting fouled, then there might be some different outcomes. But I love watching the guy play, man. And the thing that's most impressive to me about him is 4 or 5 years ago, he was a very skilled guy who was a fat kid trying to make it through an NBA season. This dude is as physically fit as any big in the NBA. All right. I mean, he is a testament of what Joel Embiid should strive to be from a physical standpoint. And that's on him, man. I give him all the credit in the world for that.
He played 44 minutes tonight. The guy doesn't run out of gas. His performance in the first quarter mirrors his fourth quarter performances, and that's conditioning.
Yep.
Yes.
The other thing, it's funny when you say Jokic, I mean, we're all basketball fans, have been around a while and have seen him, kind of emerge. This guy was first of all, he was a second round pick, right? Mm-hmm. He was a 2014 NBA draft choice. Wiggins went number 1, by the way. Joel Embiid went 3rd overall in that draft. And Jokic went 41. Do you guys remember the early days of Jokic?
Yeah.
Remember when
Baby Huey.
Well, but Yusuf Nurkic was supposed to be the better of the two. Mm-hmm. Remember? It was like Jokic was like, but Nurkic was supposed to be like the guy. And so much for that. He's an incredible player. He really is. What would you say is his greatest skill? Is it the passing? I kind of agree with Frank that I think the rebounding is, highlighted in this small ball era because of the people that are not going up against him. But I think his floor vision and passing is his greatest trait. Yeah. Some might say it's the shooting though from the perimeter. What do you guys think?
The word I'd use for him is touch. Like for a big and for someone who looks big and clumsy like he does, he has such good touch on the ball, man. Whether it's shots, you don't see them break and clang like how, for example, Wiggins' shot used to do and still kind of does sometimes. He's got such good touch on his shots and passes and handling. And touch is just something you can't teach. So, it's some people can develop it. A lot of people naturally have it. And for someone of his size to have the perfect touch on the ball like he does, to me, just translates to everything else. And I agree with Damon, and I think Damon said it about his conditioning too. He doesn't look like he's conditioned now. Like he looks thinner than he used to, but it's not like he has this like Adonis style body. He still looks flabby, but he's clearly in shape, man, because he's playing these heavy minutes and he doesn't look worn down. Like you never see him resting his arms on his knees. And Yeah, man, it's just every glowing adoration that he gets, I think.
I wonder is because, you always hear that players who, play in every other city but Denver are at a disadvantage when they go into the altitude. Do players who play the majority of their games in altitude have a little bit of an advantage coming down to sea level?
That's a good call.
Disadvantage one way, does it become an advantage the other way? I don't know. I'm going to need a doctor to tell me how lungs work to explain that one.
But this guy used to drink a 2-liter of Coke every day.
Based on
Did you guys ever read that anecdote?
That's like a 12-ounce can to you and me based on how big he is. I'll tell you, I don't know if it's his one greatest skill, but it's to me, it's the most dangerous weapon. And like Frank said, with Hakeem and that hook shot that you couldn't stop, Jokic, and I can't even claim to say this. I wish I could because it's such a perfect description.
Just claim it.
He just has, it's like his just little flip of the wrist hook shot that he's got with that right hand. Someone once said it's so effortless, it looks like he's putting a box of cereal back on top of the refrigerator. And that's all it is. It's effortless. He doesn't look like he's trying to get it off. He's just putting a box of cereal back on top of the refrigerator. He flips his wrists and the Cinnamon Toast Crunch right where it's supposed to be. And like you said, he doesn't clank it. It's all net all the time from every angle and spot on the floor. That hook shot from inside 6 feet, he's got to get that off at 85%. He really does. It's got. I wonder what the real analytics and numbers are on that shot with inside of 6 feet. It's got to just be money.
What do you think of Mike Fuss here, guys? Vlade Divac plus Dirk equals Jokic.
It has to be the nerve ending. Steph Curry has that also. Antoine Jameson had that. The ball just comes off their fingers really, really softly. I mean, Antoine Jameson would literally be on the ground. He would throw a ball up, and consistently it would roll in the basket. And it has something to do with the nerve endings. Now, I'm going to use a strange analogy. What Jokic has is what really good defensive ends have, all right? When you get, like I play defensive end, and Bosa has this, right? That's why he's great. When you get that initial hit from the offensive lineman, you either stop, an offensive lineman has control of you, or you figure out a way to get around or to deal with that guy by moving your feet. Your feet are still moving. So Jokic, his head is up, and his legs are still moving as he's coming into the defender. So it's inadvertent contact, but it allows him to get to the position that he wants to get to all the time. And because his touch is so good, you can't stop him. And it's because his lower body never stops. Never. Watch him. He takes that dribble, and he's coming towards the guy. There's that initial contact, throws the defender off balance, and he puts the ball up softly, and the ball goes in. Bosa has that as a defensive lineman also.
Well, he can bully you and finesse you because the footwork is just –
right.
It's just as fundamentally sound a footwork as you're going to find. He's never crossed up. He doesn't get himself out of, the wrong foot spacing at any point in time. He's so thoroughly skilled. It closed the gap of whatever bit of athleticism he will be the first to admit he doesn't really possess. And he's got almost like a self-effacing level of humor about critiquing who he is as an athlete. He'll tell you, I don't jump. I'm not a jumper. And the reason why I didn't want to come and play college basketball in America is like everybody's too busy jumping. I just want to stand on the floor and play basketball. And he stays on the floor and he plays basketball, and he lets his skill set close whatever athletic gap a guy like, the athletic, raw athletic talent comparison between Nikola Jokic and Bam Adebayo, it's not even close. Like, Bam Adebayo is 10 times the raw athlete, and the guy who you would, just based on who they look like getting off the bus, the guy that you would draft ahead of that guy. That's what NBA centers in this generation are supposed to look like. That incredibly string bean athlete that can just jump out of the gym. Jokic is the opposite of that, and he's vastly superior. Even though I'll tell you, Bam does hold his own out there. He really does. He's a good player.
Bam's a hell of a player. 95.7 Brian says, in my mind, Jokic's greatest attribute is his vision and ability to dissect a play before it even happens. His basketball IQ is so high. Pumpkin Seal says, Jokic 2-inch vertical. There
right.
you go.
It's about he'd admit it.
We got this one from Pumpkin who says Arvydas Sabonis as a passer and Dirk Nowitzki as a shooter. And there we have Jokic.
That's an interesting point. People don't talk about Sabonis nearly as much as they should. I mean, what I mean by that is Sabonis, when he finally played in the NBA, was coming off 2 torn Achilles tendons. Like from what I heard, and Rick Barry's told me a lot of stories about him when he was young. Sabonis was supposedly going to be like an all-time great as a center, but he suffered these horrific leg injuries, and so the version we saw at Portland supposedly was a shell of his former self. That's
right. He was floor bound, but you still saw the mastery.
Right.
Yeah,
totally. I saw him play, and first of all, Sabonis is bigger than Jokic. Sabonis was 7'3".
Yeah,
correct.
And his athleticism rivaled like Patrick Ewing. This dude was a super athlete, not a good athlete. He was he was the bouncy guy that Jokic didn't want to play against in college. That's who he was. And he had everything. I mean, he had a jump shot. He could dribble drive. He wasn't as skilled as Jokic, but defensively, he was a monster, and he was strong. He was tough. I mean, he was the best player in the world as an 18, 19-year-old kid. No, he was. He was.
By the way, and I'm glad that you just brought this highlight up because I kind of looked at it too while we were talking. I wanted to see what Bam did tonight because Bam had a good game, but it was also like he wasn't even there because Jokic just cancels him out and then like doubles him up while he's canceling him out. Tonight, Adebayo in a loss, maybe wasn't efficient, just 7 of 21 from the floor, but he was 8 of 10 from the free throw line, and he was 22 and 17. I mean, there's no world where your center going 22 and 17 is a bad game.
Right.
Well, somebody else is going to help at Bam on the glass, though. I mean, there wasn't another Nugget that had 5 rebounds, let alone, Strus had 4. I just think let's just be honest here. I mean, we talk about the NBA regular season being, the playoffs of the second season. But I mean, these teams are different teams. Denver was the number 1 team in the West all year, despite the fact it's hard to believe. But Denver was under 500 at home, or on the road, I should say, 19 and 22. They were awesome at home, 34 and 7 at home, 19 and 22 on the road. But Denver was the 1 seed and was the 1 seed all year. Miami was the 8 seed. Miami was a 44-win team that finished 14 games behind the Bucks, and they've had a nice little run, and Spoelstra's fantastic, but Denver, I think, is winning this series, and they were favored to win the series, and we'll see if Miami gets back in it. But
you never know, though, right? If there's any team where they're going to defy all the odds, it's them. I mean, they took what they've done is incredible. The Bucks, Celtics. I'm already forgetting the third game was the Knicks, I think, in the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
Dude, what they're doing is absurd, regardless of what happens in the finals, but. Yeah, the Nuggets are on paper are so much better. I mean, I think they showed tonight they're the better team, but this Heat team, man, it's insane. It's insane.
Well, you have to be able to score in the paint. Look at this one. Terradome says, Larry, talk about the points in the paint. 60 for Denver, 34 for Miami.
Well, the thing is, Miami's going to continue to go back to the well that got them here. They weren't a very good 3-point shooting team in the regular season, and that's why they didn't have a very good regular season. They get to the playoffs, and all of a sudden, they're the Golden State Warriors from downtown. And they just left Denver taking like 72 threes in the first 2 games and only 50-something twos. I mean, they are just, gaming the math of the 3-point era, and they've hit enough shots that they were able to get 1 in Denver. I know that feels like, because Michael Malone came all scorched earth at his team afterwards, like that was a really big moment. Miami's, I think, scrappy as hell, great story. Heat culture is not, it's a t-shirt, print it. It's real. Heat culture is real. the Denver Nuggets are going to win 4 games in this series before the Miami Heat do. I think that's pretty clear. They got 2 more to go here, and I wouldn't be so. Look, even if Miami has a one last stand to even this thing 2-2, I still think it's Denver in 6. I think it's Denver in 5. I don't think Miami wins another game based on what I saw tonight, unless they find restricted zone Jesus and just start playing in the paint more, because they don't have enough shooters to keep shooting like that and expect it to fall.
Now, Denver can win when their team doesn't play well. Miami can't. So their role players were horrible tonight, and so they can't win.
Nick J, I do want to get to this topic as well. He says thoughts on Steve Kerr going on Draymond Green's podcast and essentially calling out Jonathan Kuminga and Jordan Poole without naming names. I'm sure he and the new general manager have to be in agreement to trade those guys. This was not that we were totally done talking about the finals, but it was a one-sided game tonight. I definitely, I know Damon's not going to be here.
We're talking to a Denver audience here. Miami's not into us tonight.
Yeah. Well, let's get our thoughts on this, because that was interesting. I mean, not that Kerr went on with Draymond. I mean, Draymond, is his player. He's, he has his own podcast. You could expect that he would have Kerr on, but man, it was almost like it was weird to see Steve use that forum to kind of call out publicly Kuminga and Poole. And basically, if you didn't see it, it was like Kerr saying, hey, these guys pouted, they were unprofessional. And he basically made it sound like, they're getting ready to show those 2 guys the door. And Draymond didn't participate, but he sure grinned while it was going on.
Yes, there was no doubt. I kind of feel it wasn't even what Kerr said that gave it away. It was Draymond's smile that kind of gave it away. Right?
Yes.
I think in some ways this is the problem, though, because this team literally, they weren't good enough to win anyway. But one thing that I really believe strongly in is you can't have two standards. You can't have, hey, you know what? I got Draymond, Klay, and Steph standards and Andre standards, and then I've got standards for everybody else. I just don't think that works all that well in a team sport. And I felt like the Warriors felt like 2 teams. I mean, the 2 timeline thing has never been. People say, well, the 2 timelines, and we should stop talking about it. No, because they made it. They allowed this to be the situation all year. Everybody embraced that 2 timeline thing. And unfortunately, it was like 2 teams and 2 different standards for those 2 teams. And I think that's you're never going to win a title. I don't care who you got. You're never going to win a title if you have, 2 standards and 2 sets of rules for your team based on, we got a group of old guys that can do whatever the hell they want. We got a group of young guys. When they screw up, they're coming off the floor. And it's just, I just don't think it works, and it didn't work. I think it was part of the reason they lost. What did you guys think of Kerr's comments? And let's get into the Warriors, where they're going from here. Frank, why don't we start with you? What do you think? I mean, if I'm Jonathan Kuminga and I'm watching that, I'm not putting down a lease or on any apartments or anything like that. It sounds like, he's getting ready to be shipped out, and Poole as well, if they can find a team to take that ugly contract. What do you think? What do you think of Kerr's comments?
I think once Steve Kerr came out and said a couple of days after the season that we're not a championship team without Draymond Green, I was like, okay, he's on board. I mean, it's like almost like if he had like some young kids, he might let Draymond babysit his kids. I mean, he was wrapping his arms around Draymond at that particular point. Maybe to cover himself, because Draymond might decide to leave anyway. But Kerr is old school, man. He's old school and he's stubborn, and he's great. He's an awesome coach, but, he's not of the mindset, this is the new generation. That's not his deal. His deal is, this is how you're supposed to do it. And if you don't do it this way, then I'm going to let you know how I feel about it. I don't want to use the word punish. So I'm not surprised by that, because somebody with his mentality would have those thoughts. I don't know if you would publicize them the way that he did, but from a cultural standpoint, man, if you can trade Jordan Poole, you need to trade him. Not to punish him, but to get a new smell or aura in the room, and to give this young man an opportunity to go somewhere and be the player that we think that he can be. Jonathan Kuminga, he doesn't understand how close he is to being out of the league versus signing a big-time long-term contract. So I think it was kind of a message. Get on board, son, because you have the talent. You can do it. There's a place for you, but you have to conduct yourself the way that we think that you should. So it was almost like a sounding board for Kerr to kind of let off the message that he wants to permeate throughout the era, throughout the air for these guys to hear it. So I wasn't surprised by it.
Go ahead, Damon, Cy, whoever wants to jump in. Go ahead, jump in.
Well, I'll just say that I don't think either player's going anywhere. I don't think they're trading either player. No, I really don't. Jordan Poole is a 20-point-a-game scorer at the age of 23. He's their own guy. They extended him. I think they still expect big things from him. And any kind of public disappointment that Steve Kerr is sharing now, it feels heavy-handed, but it isn't. It's a Draymond Green podcast. It's going to blow away like dandelion dust. It's nothing. Jonathan Kuminga is 20 years old. They drafted him knowing that he was raw as shit. Raw as shit doesn't mean that he's going to figure it all out at once. There is going to be ebbs and flows of progression and regression, and that's going to dot the early part of his career. And I'm not surprised that some emotional baggage is part of that ebbing and flowing too. He's 20. He's playing in his second language. He's figuring out who he is as he's growing up, a new country, a new sport at its highest, hardest professional level, dauber down because he wasn't in the playoffs and playing. And I get it all. And I think that Kerr cares enough to say things that sound like they're, angry and pointed, but they're not really. And I just don't think that the first act of the next Warriors general manager is to come in here and start making, trading away what I could think. Look at it this way. Say whatever you want about Jordan Poole. There's something about him that screams, I'm a scorer in this league, and you all know it. You wouldn't be this frustrated by him if you didn't expect even more out of him, and they're getting a decent amount out of him at his age 23 season. You'd like him to be a little bit more emotionally mature. I'm not surprised that he felt betrayed from the whole Draymond thing. I'm also from generation, get the hell over it and go to work, grab your lunch pail. I don't hear anything bad about Jordan Poole's work ethic. I heard he's a grinder of the first degree. Draymond said that himself. I just think this is podcast bullshit, guys. I think that both those guys are on the team, certainly at the beginning of next year. Jordan Poole may be a candidate to be traded if things don't come into better focus in the first half. But I think Kuminga's along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Kuminga being along for the ride, and Kuminga was obviously frustrated throughout the playoffs. There was no disputing that. He even went public in an interview and said so. But then you heard his tone in the exit interview, and he was saying exactly what you want to hear from him. He was entirely in line, saying he's going to improve his rebounding. He's going to work on being a better all-around player. And Steve Kerr was also saying the exact same thing on the other side of the equation, where he was saying he completely understood Kuminga's frustration. He's someone who wants to play. I would be frustrated too. They both were saying exactly the right things. I think Kerr is an incredibly smart individual, and he's a media savant. So I agree that that it is a podcast and they're shooting the shit. I don't think Kerr says things without applying some calculation to it. I mean, that there was a pointed degree of his comments. I just don't think it was geared so much toward Kuminga as it was toward Poole. And a huge reason why I don't think Poole's coming back is because the Warriors right now, and this is the thing no one is discussing. I don't hear anyone talking about this, at least in all the legacy media platforms, is that the Warriors right now are penciled to be spending $490 million approximately in payroll next year. And unless Blake has changed from someone who is relatively prudent in the way he spends his money, he has said repeatedly publicly that he does not want that budget to go over 400. And right now it's at 490. And one of the only ways you're going to get down to 400 is by lopping that Jordan Poole contract off your plate. So how that happens, whether it's trading him to a team like San Antonio, a team like Orlando, who's well under the cap and can send back a trade exception, which translates to absolutely nothing for the Warriors because they're not going to use it. I don't know how they're going to get to that 400 level. If someone believes that Lakers going to suddenly spend another $90 million for to keep the same team together that got bounced in the second round of the playoffs, I mean, I appreciate your optimism. I do not agree that that's going to happen. So they're in a tough place just from that position alone. And what I saw was them talking about a dead man walking, which is Jordan Poole. I don't think he's coming back. And I agree that he's a player who's young, who can score. There's a lot of positives to his game, but he costs a shitload of money. The Warriors need to shed money, and it just wouldn't surprise me if he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the argument for keeping both guys, but I think Kuminga's got a chance to stay. Poole's gone. Poole's absolutely gone. And it's because he's not nearly as good as he thinks he is. And their culture, you just saw Kerr's the coach, and Draymond's a future Hall of Famer, and Draymond's not going anywhere. And that means Poole is, because their feel and their vibe sucked. And then ultimately what you do in the playoffs defines who you are. And he was crap in the playoffs. He went from playing 30 minutes a game in the regular season to 21 in the playoffs. Kerr didn't trust him. His field goal percentage dropped from 43 to 34%. His three-point shooting in the playoffs was 25%. But this guy's mentally gone. His free throw shooting dropped from 87% in the regular season, and it was 90-something% last year, to 76% in the playoffs. So he's mentally fried.
I would trade a 33-year-old Klay Thompson before I traded a 23-year-old Jordan Poole.
Well, it's all about what you can get, but Sai's totally right. It's this. Jordan Poole is the guy they're going to move because they need a financial reset, and there'll be somebody that will take Jordan Poole and I think give them talent back. I also think that, this is an opportunity for Golden State to kind of reset their whole culture. I personally kind of think that Jordan Poole doesn't really understand what he is. He's watched Steph Curry, and he thinks he's Steph Curry, and he's not Steph Curry. Mm-hmm. He is an awesome free throw shooter, but he's afraid to go to the hole because he doesn't want to get touched. And he's not a good three-point shooter, but he takes hugely deep threes like he's Steph Curry, and those are all horrendous shots. I mean, think about the number of times this guy took shots in the playoffs from 5 feet or more beyond the arc, and he's shooting 25% from three. So that ain't going to continue. I mean, I think they move him on. I really do. I think they're going to move him on. Now, Kuminga, I think there's more options there. I think I think Damon's right in that there's way more of a market for Kuminga than there is for Poole. And I don't know that it's going to be easy to trade him. And you may have to attach something with him, or be willing to take, to reset with some picks and a trade exception. But I think he's moving on. I really do. I think it has a lot to do with the finances, but it's partly to do with the culture. And I just think that they were broken, and they've sided with Draymond. They're gonna stay with Draymond. We don't even know who the general manager is going to be.
It's crazy. This whole thing. We're about to find out one thing that's very interesting, and that's what kind of owner Joe Lacob is, because he talks a big game about wanting to win championships, right? But as Damon said, if that's really what you want, if your goal is to maintain championship contender status, I grew up under the Eddie D model of sports ownership, which to me is perfect, man. You treat your players and your organization like it's family, but you also communicate very clearly from day one, this is still a business. And when your time comes and you're out. And he would always cut losses on the Sooner side before the player fell off the precipice, versus waiting until they were no longer valuable and you just lost them for nothing. So Klay Thompson, to me, at the $43 million, if the Warriors are smart, and I'm not saying, this is not me hating on Klay, man. This is just me looking at the Warriors and wanting to maintain a championship contender status. That's $43 million you're spending on a player whose defense has regressed, who does not have a close range game. His numbers from two were awful. I know he had his 3-point numbers are masking a lot of issues last year, because yes, he led the league in 3-pointers made. He had a solid 3-point percentage, but his 2-point shot was awful. He can't create his own shot, which is a huge issue. And I don't know what you do with Klay, man. But if you keep this core, and more specifically, if you keep Klay and Dre, you're just going to be writing nostalgia for the next 3 years. You're going to turn into the Lakers of the 2010s, a team that has these players you love, but they're not going to do shit in the postseason. And I'm very curious and fascinated to see what the direction is that Lacob takes here, man, because he's at a fork in the road. Either you stick with nostalgia, you stick with your players that wanted these titles, but you're not going to win anymore, or you go aggressive and you move these players while they have value, and you keep this thing rolling, man, with Steph as the leader and hopefully a transition.
Let me respond when you finish. Well, no, I just wanted to say that football and basketball are totally different sports.
Well, obviously.
But there's an emotional component to basketball players that may or may not exist in football.
But players like Joe Montana, man, they had emotional connections, you know.
No. And I'm not saying, but you were saying that fundamentally you use that same philosophy with all players. I'm not talking about like a Joe Montana. And what I'm saying is that that's tough to do with a player like a Klay Thompson, who has brought you 4 championships. And you need 5 guys to go out and impact the game. When these guys are playing heavy minutes, their agents, their nutritionists, they're all telling them, you know what? You're wearing yourself down. So then some guys on horrible teams, they go like, you know what? Well, let me ease back a little bit. You know, I'm not feeling right. My ankle's not quite there yet. The Warriors have true professionals, right? They are totally invested. And I think that does matter. Now, the Warriors and even the Klay Thompson, it wasn't the starters. What happened was when the Warriors went to the bench, their bench gave them nothing. That was it. They could have actually won a championship this year if their bench played remarkably well. So, yes, his production is eroding, but it's not horrible. The bench was horrible. That's what happened.
Frank, for $43 million, that's where I say it's horrible.
Okay, let me just try to negotiate an extension for $30 million for 3 years. They got to get that done. If you can't get his salary down $13 million and extend him another 2 for 30, then I agree with you. You have to start looking elsewhere.
You think 30 is what he deserves? Like,
yes.
Wow, I think that's crazy high to me still. Like, I wouldn't pay him more than 15, 20. Like,
no way in hell. I mean, he's a starter. He's a starter on a team that, quote unquote, is challenging for a championship. What does that work? I mean, Jamal Murray makes 27, 28. Now, Klay Thompson.
I mean, what I think we almost need to look at, and what I would kind of like to see, is for some people to start accepting realities. You know, the Warriors can't do this the way they want to do it. They need to do it the way that I think the data is telling them they probably need to do it.
Yeah.
It's time to get Klay Thompson out of the starting 5, and I'd like to see Jordan Poole put into the starting 5 only because we know he's a much better player as a starter. Mm-hmm. See what you got there. Give it 20 games. Have Klay now hopefully be the spark of a little bit of offense off the bench, plus you're saving his legs, plus you're saving the wear and tear on a guy who absolutely needs it at this point in time in his career. So, I mean, you know, when it comes to Joe, I mean, proving who he is as an owner, Cyrus, I know that, you know,
the type of owner, like is he going to be an owner?
He's the single greatest owner in the history of Bay Area sports, given the pile of shit he was handed and what he turned it into.
I don't know. Eddie D
were as bad
I
as
don't think he's supplanted Eddie D yet. Yeah, I don't think he's supplanted. Eddie D got 5, and he inherited a similar disaster.
And Eddie D
also left it in a disaster. I don't think Joe Lacob is going to leave the Golden State Warriors in worse shape than when he found them, which Eddie D just ruined the Niners for the decade after he had great decades with the Niners. He really did.
I don't totally disagree with that. He ruined the Niners. The salary cap had a huge impact on the 49ers' demise.
The guy got into the bed with the wrong people, and
the Niners were still a good team,
and it all goes to shit for a long time.
But you're talking about off the floor stuff. I mean, Eddie D didn't hand the general manager's job to his kid, and we may see Joe do that. So let's
I don't think he's going to do that. But here's the thing: look, what we have here is a man who took the Atlanta Hawks and turned them into the Boston Celtics. That's what Joe Lacob did.
Yeah.
Joe Lacob, as an owner, has built the stadium that no one thought could
They had
ever
Klay
be built.
Thompson and Steph Curry. They had the makings. They had one of the greatest young backcourts in the history of the league on the roster before he ever showed up. He bought at the right time, and he did some nice things. But
But
I
at
think
the
you're
right time,
giving him a little bit too much credit because he
what
inherited
he has done-
Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
Sure,
I mean,
but there's not a lot of owners who make draft picks anyways, Larry. Like it's not the owner's job to draft the team. It's the owner's job to set the culture and tone of the team. And from the minute Joe Lacob got here, he's the one who said, all right, the standards are now changing. We need to put banners in the rafters. Like this guy said that publicly, and literally
I agree with
like
that.
in
I do agree with that.
5 minutes built the stadium
Damon,
that
I
no
don't
other
disagree.
owner could have gotten built
I don't
anywhere in
disagree
the
with
Bay
any of
Area.
that. But Damon, time doesn't freeze, man. Like we're like every year is still
Right,
going
but here's
to
how,
go.
but nothing lasts forever if you're admitting that time doesn't freeze. And here's the goal of the entire franchise. You cannot think of the Golden State Warriors in terms of multiple anythings anymore. There is no multiple championships waiting in your future. The multiple championships have been won. There are fucking 4 of them.
That's defeatist.
And to
That's
say that
a
this
defeatist
goes
attitude.
on
So you're
forever.
saying
Here's the
it's
goal.
over. Like,
He
goal for the
says
Golden
it's
State
going to
Warriors.
go on
The Warriors
forever.
have one goal, and the one goal is get Steph to one more NBA Finals. That's it. That is the only goal for the Warriors. There isn't a 2-year goal, a 6-year goal, a 4-year plan. You got one plan. Get Steph to one more NBA Finals, and you'll be lucky if that can happen in the next 3 seasons.
Yeah, but here's the thing about it. They built an opulent palace. And so if you devote everything to that, what you just said there is the stated goal of do whatever you got to do to get Steph one more ring, that's most likely going to result in driving the franchise off the cliff. And you're $52.99 for 3 tall boys at the game. People aren't going to pay those prices.
Larry,
the Warrior business side challenged the Warrior basketball side with making that arena as opulent as it is.
Right.
And it's so expensive that's why we have the 2 timeline approach, because Joe's totally aware that he's got to keep a competitive product on the field or on the court. Otherwise, people aren't going to pay those prices.
It's not going to happen, though. But it's not going to happen. That's fairyland.
Here's the one thing about
fairyland.
this.
That's Fantasyland stuff. There's no Steph Curry is the single greatest player in the history of this franchise. Throughout the NBA's history, there's no such thing as your single greatest player in the history of your franchise is no longer on your franchise, and everything stays great. That does not happen.
Well,
doesn't happen
to Joe, he says we're going to win. We're going to win. I think he just made one of the biggest, this greatest owner of all time just made one of the biggest PR blunders of all time.
Yeah, no,
onto the dais and trying to one up his general manager, who was like one of the most beloved people in the Bay Area native, and he sat there and it was ugly. It was ugly. I mean, Ray Ritter's a great PR guy. That was a PR blunder of the highest order.
I didn't think it was a good look for Lacob either. He should have stopped.
He never should have done it. Somebody should have gotten in his face and said, Joe, don't.
Why was he even up there? I never understood that part of it.
Call a second press conference if you have to. Let me just say this. The Warriors got to where they're at by hitting on uniquely skilled players in the draft.
Correct.
That other teams saw as flawed. And if they're going to win again, they're going to have to do the same thing. And it's possible and it can happen, but it takes basketball personnel evaluation genius, not your kid dabbling in it for the very first time, or Mike Dunleavy as the face as your kid has a huge impact. And when your son, even though he may have been a Stanford this or that, you had Jerry West and Jerry West, and you have really Don Nelson. I mean, Don Nelson, I've talked to Larry Riley. I've interviewed Larry Riley. Larry Riley worked under Don Nelson in Dallas, and then Nelly brought Larry Riley to the Warriors. Larry Riley didn't wipe his ass without asking Don Nelson, do I use my right hand? Do I use my left hand? So this idea that we're going to keep crediting Larry Riley with Steph Curry is preposterous. Don Nelson told Larry Riley to draft Steph Curry no matter what. And when Del Curry and Steph said, we don't want to play for you, they flipped them the bird and said, you'll play for who we decide you play for.
Fact? Just to be clear, I've never heard this before. This is fact? Like Don Nelson told Larry Riley.
Gary Radnich and I had Larry Riley on the show. I asked him 19 different times about the lead up to that draft, and he told us many times Nelly reviewed all the players and was like, Steph is really special. Nelly at that point had already in one offseason brought Dirk Nowitzki and Steve Nash to the Dallas Mavericks in the same offseason. So he was a totally made man in the eyes of Larry Riley. And he could have said, Larry, draft anybody. Draft Damon Bruce and Larry Krueger, and he would have drafted Damon Bruce and Larry Krueger. The idea that Larry Riley, independent of Nelly, made this, no. Don Nelson signed off on Steph Curry. He gave Larry Riley the confidence to go do it. Larry Riley did it. The genius was Nelly. It was Nelly's genius.
First of all, the genius was the luck that came into it. The fact that Steph Curry fell to them because
David Falk,
the Minnesota
David Kahn
just made the dumbest mistake.
That was bad. I mean, that is kind of NBA basketball. I mean, you could say the same thing. Jimmer Fredette went one pick ahead of Klay Thompson. My point is just that
it was really
idea that you're going to somehow forget the draft, ignore the draft, and you're just going to somehow make some trades and acquire players and surround Steph with the talent doesn't recognize how you got here to begin with. Now, in my opinion, I think we're going to see a Jordan Poole trade that's going to make people pissed off because I think because Sai's totally right. They want to do a financial reset. I think you're going to see a Jordan Poole maybe go to Dallas, and I think it could be something for like Jordan Poole to Dallas for Davis Bertans and like Reggie Bullock and like a lottery pick. And people are going to be like, what? Reggie Bullock, Davis Bertans, and a lottery pick? But Bertans makes 17. Bullock makes 10. Bullock's contract's done at the end of the year. Bertans has a player option. They'll be able to get out from under the money. It will save them huge amounts of money. And they'll be able to take a player like Grady Dick from Kansas at 10. With that
Grady Dick, man.
I do love Grady Dick.
Say that before.
But I mean, you're adding a ton of shooting. Bullock can flat out shoot it. Bertans can shoot it. Grady Dick can shoot it. I think you got to learn a little bit from what Miami's done here. You do have to have shooting, and I still think that's the best way to support Steph Curry. But I think Poole is going to get moved in an unimpressive kind of return for guys who make big money. Dallas, I think, is looking for that one player to pair with Luka and Kyrie to try to climb the mountain. And I think Poole will be enticing to them. And that price tag, I think, will seem palatable. The guys that I think if I was running the Warriors, I would try to target skilled players that are overlooked. Okay. There is a kid that I saw in the Chicago pre-draft camp named Tristan Vukovic, who's from Serbia, who played in Italy, he's born, I think he's from Italy, but he was born in Serbia. He played for Real Madrid this year. He's 6'11". He's got an unbelievable Kevin Garnett kind of face-up game. He's a little bit of Dirk, a little bit of Garnett, a little bit of KD in that he's a big, tall, long guy with just a beautiful Klay Thompson-like release. He showed in Chicago that he's not just a three-point shooter. He can put it on the deck at the elbow, rise up with a hand in his face like a KD and knock that shot down. He's as pure comes. Then you got Grady Dick, who's like a 64% three-point shooter in Chicago in those workouts. You add some big-time skill, guys who can really play. I think that's their ticket. This idea about LeBron or adding, of one more, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to be able to make the kinds of moves to acquire stars in the league. They're going to have to go and do it the hard way like they did it the first time. There are no shortcuts. You have to go find skill. They're not an OG Anunoby away from a title. They're not. I keep hearing on the game that, and by the way, somebody asked, am I on the game this week? Friday, I'm sitting in for Dibs. Or sitting in with Dibs, I should say, for Willard.
Oh, nice. With Dibs.
But heretic.
But yeah, check that out. But I'm just saying, yeah, some Patrick says, Larry, get a Dick jersey. Yeah, I mean, they'll be chanting Dick, Dick, Dick in Oakland or in at the Chase Center. But I really believe that. I don't think that you're just going to, I mean, I've seen the rumors. The names that I'm hearing in trades are OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. I mean, they're talking for some combination of, Poole and Kuminga and that kind of thing. Karl Anthony Towns has been thrown out. Siakam's been thrown out. Alex Caruso, Anunoby. I don't think any of those guys get them over the top against. I don't think the league is unbelievable. I mean, look at the finals this year. I don't see Denver as just this juggernaut, and I don't see Miami as a juggernaut. The league is gettable. I mean, it's not like they're forget the chances of winning a ring, but I don't think you're going to be able to do it in a veteran trade. I think you're going to have to do it the way you did it before.
More than anything else out of this draft, the Warriors need a player on the court.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we all know that, where they're picking, unless there is some sort of trade that allows them to move up, where they're picking, the chances of them finding a player to play on the court that Steve Kerr will be comfortable playing on the court is, rare it's slim to none, right? So making that wasn't that sexy trade, if it gets them a player on the court, it's the right thing to do. And you're right. OG Anunoby probably isn't the difference maker in a championship, but that'll never be the difference maker for the Warriors going forward. Is Draymond Green and Steph Curry had one more great season left in the two of them to unlock the best of them. Klay, Jordan Poole, someone else decided to come along for the ride in more games than not. And then, one or two more difference makers off the bench, which, this year Dante DiVincenzo flirted with being, but never really became. They need guys to play NBA basketball.
Well, Damon, let me ask you this.
No doubt.
Curry to get a rookie to do that.
Do you think Lacob's going to spend the extra money? Is he going to go over 400?
When it comes to Joe Lacob spending money, there's no reason for me to doubt he will. Not yet.
Okay. All right. So you think they will hit $500 million? Because that would shock me. If they do, then they can keep the same team. But they can't keep the same team right now. If otherwise, it's impossible. It's literally impossible. That's the main reason why I don't think they keep Poole. Is because is he worth $90 million? Because with all the
I know it's but they put themselves in this position. They did it willingly. They walked into it. The NBA's CBA kind of basically, tried to put the screws to them. We'll see what happens. I mean, the next GM's got a hell of a job cut out for him. There's no doubt. This is not an easy fix.
Well, there's two things. You got to find the core pieces in the draft, and then you have to. The one advantage the Warriors do have, guys, is that, like somebody says, re-sign JTA and Damian Lee. I don't know about that, but they will be able to, because of Steph, because of Draymond. I think they're going to be able to attract some guys, some role players who want to win a title, but they're going to have to roll the dice and win in the draft. They're not going to be able to just. I think Steph and Klay and Draymond are too beyond their prime to
even
just
Steph?
sit there. Well, I mean, as far as to single-handedly, get them to the win back on the top of the basketball world, I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I think they're going to have significant contributions from other people. And that's why I'm saying that this whole, I realize Kerr has not played young players, but that's going to have to change. They won't be able to do it no matter what. I mean, that's how I see it. I mean, Kerr's going to have to, but I understand why he didn't play these young players. I don't really agree with the notion that Kerr can't play young players. Kerr's really bright. Kerr can't play players that aren't ready to play and don't know how to play. But the young players, I don't agree that he can't play young players. I just don't think he can play flawed players. And they're going to have to, but they won because they hit it in the draft. And if they're going to win again, it's because they hit again in the draft.
They hit in the draft, but they also surrounded those core players with phenomenal pieces. I mean, you can't overlook the Gary Payne IIs, the Otto Porter Juniors, the Nemanja Bjelica's, David West.
That part of it, I think they can replicate. I think they can do that part again because they're kind of already there. And I think they'll be able to attract a couple more complementary pieces because I think they are a team that people want to play for. Frank, go ahead. You wanted to jump in too.
Yes,
yeah, please.
Yeah. First of all, I think that Damon was right in that the goal should be to make it to one more finals. I mean, anything beyond that is really loony talk. I mean, guys have their run. The Warriors have had a tremendous run. I still think that the pieces are there based on what we see in the Western Conference for them to get there. The three teams that I look for Jordan Poole to potentially be traded to: the Washington Wizards, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Orlando Magic. All of those teams have pieces that could be attractive to the Warriors if they can get the money right. I mean, you guys might go.
Who are you thinking, Frank? Let's go team by team quickly on that one. Orlando, what's the piece that you think is
you love Jalen Suggs. I know you're a huge Suggs fan.
Yeah, you like Suggs. Wendell Carter,
Suggs.
You thinking Wendell Carter?
Well, yeah, I don't think they get rid of him.
Isaacs.
I love Suggs and I like Isaacs. I mean, those are pieces that I think Orlando potentially might let go of, because Jordan Poole could go down there and do what he did with the Warriors, be a 20-point scorer and really, really be somebody who they could kind of lean on in those tough situations. They have a lot of young talent, and they have
Brooklyn?
the pieces.
Brooklyn, what? Are you thinking Dinwiddie?
No.
Are you thinking
no,
Dorian Finney-Smith?
No,
You thinking Ben Simmons?
I'm thinking Ben Simmons. I mean,
Okay.
have you seen the videos of this guy working out? You look at his body. I mean, he's in Australia. Wherever he is, the dude is at least putting forth an effort to get himself in shape. He looks damn good. He really does. And, I mean, I might take a fly on him because the Warriors have the best culture in the NBA, in my opinion, and I think that they could resurrect this guy, get him to the point, because he's an all-around player.
I don't hate it.
He does everything
I
well.
don't hate it.
And
Now-
you're thinking Zinger, Porzingis, the Wizards,
No,
Kuzma,
no.
Kuzma's not possible.
No, the point
Beal?
guard, Morris. The point
Monty
guard.
Morris.
Oh, yeah, along with something else, maybe some young guys, some draft capital, something that's going to allow the Warriors to balance their book. Monte Morris is a French starter, would come into the Warriors, and your backup point guard issues would be over. All right, and he can play 25 to 28 minutes a game. Now, this is where I disagree with you, Damon. You said 19 is no. This is a special draft because all of these fringe other leagues, a lot of players don't know these guys. All right, so the depth talent evaluators are going to be able to get a player in this draft that is actually better than the top 7 or 8 players that get drafted. All right.
I agree with that. And by the way, NBADraft.net, just so you guys know, at 19 currently has the Warriors taking Trace Jackson Davis out of Damon's Indiana Hoosiers, who's Dale Davis's kid, but they have him going 19. Guess who they have going 20? Leonard Miller.
I love him. That's the guy I was going to tell you about. Leonard Miller.
I had on today's Locked On Warriors, I had, in my opinion, the most brilliant draft analyst on the planet. And I'm so lucky when I get her on. And she echoed your sentiments, Frank. She said, like, the upcoming drafts beyond this year for the next 2-3 years are going to be weak. There's going to be a massive absence of good talent. And this draft is deep, especially where the Warriors are 19. First time ever in the franchise's history, they're picking number 19. And so here are the names that I ran by her in terms of prospects. And again, I've always said if I ever become a GM, she would be the first person I hire as my assistant.
Who is it?
Human being. Recommend getting her on your show if you ever want to guess. Her name is Kristen Peak. She's a draft analyst for Yahoo Sports and for Rivals. And she does get pursued by teams. She just loves what she's doing right now. So who she has under her mock draft right now is Kobe Buffkin, 6'4" guard out of Michigan. But the two players who
he can play, by the way, he can play.
Agreed. And so she originally had Derek Lively go into the Warriors, but he had this great workout and he impressed at the combine. So he's probably going to go higher. The other player who I selected for the Locked On Podcast Network mock draft is Jalen Hood-Schifino of Damon's Indiana Hoosiers.
Love him.
And love him too. And he could play this year. Like if he falls to the Warriors, this is a 6'6" kid who has guard skills, but has the body of a forward, can shoot the ball. He's a complete package. If he falls to the Warriors, I'm stoked. So
he's a top 10 pick.
He's not going to fall.
Every mock draft has him going 15. The Locked On draft, he fell to 19. So
I think he's going top 10. I think he's going top 10.
But
I mean, but I do agree this is a deep draft. I mean, this comment here from Nick J. He says Amani Bates, Leonard Miller. Man, Amani Bates is 6'9" with long arms. I realize there's some flaws there, but this guy can get his own shot. And Leonard Miller has a fluidity at 6'10", 6'11" that is a little, I hate to say it, KG-like. I'm not saying he's KG, but in 1 year, that guy went from really raw to a massive year in the G League. And now
Amani
you're
Bates
talking about a
couldn't
6'9", 6'10"
Amani
guy.
Bates couldn't get a shot off against Division I talent. He had to go to Central Michigan before he found what he needed. And Amani Bates,
but I mean,
it
I don't know if you saw him in Chicago. He got a shot off at will. This one also is interesting. Brian Iglesias says the Warriors need to stop drafting projects. If they stay at 19, they need to focus on a 3 or 4 year college guy. He's saying Chris Murray or Jaime Jaquez, but I think those guys
now
are
you're
too
talking
limited.
Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, so look, I'm not going to
Trace Jackson Davis
because it's an Indiana guy. Everyone's going to assume I'm biased, but he's exactly
he's a
kind
5
of the player the Warriors need. He is, as basketball mature as you can be coming out of college. He is the son of an NBA player, which the Warriors have had some success with drafting those guys.
Rebounder, shot blocker.
And he does try to take threes. I mean, he is literally
never taken one, I don't think, right?
From the low block, and that's about it. He's better than a garbage guy, but he plays in garbage guy territory. He's a rebounder, layup scorer. That's what he does, and that's what the Warriors need. And he's got that NBA pedigree, and he's got all of the minutes in college. And look, he outplayed the National Player of the Year, Zach Edey, when he played him. That's why Indiana swept Purdue this year. I mean, he is a really good player who might be in Greece before he finds a second NBA contract, because he just isn't the shooter that the NBA almost requires. And I know that he had a real nice Chicago combine. Trust me, I've been watching him for 4 years. If you need him to shoot, it's not going to be a lot of shots, but
he's actually shot in the, I talked to Bill Duffy the other day. Bill, he's looking good as far as shooting the ball in some of these workouts.
It's workouts, dude. It's freaking.
No,
workouts.
I know. But I mean, I'm saying he didn't even attempt shots at Indiana. I think the shot range will come, but he's an undersized 5. He's a 5. You got to play him he's not going to fit with Draymond. Draymond needs to play with Vukovic. He needs a guy who can shoot the ball. What did you think of Frank's question, Damon, about the Indiana kid that we were talking about, Shafino?
Yeah, we thinking.
Shafino has "I need another year in college" written all over him, but the fact that the NBA is going to draft him based on his potential is, look, I think Jalen Hood Shafino getting drafted is going to be better for Indiana than it is going to be the team that drafts him, because Mike Woodson took this guy who wasn't a heavy recruit and has turned him, I think, into a lottery pick. Like, he's going to be part of an Indiana success story in terms of getting a player ready to go to the NBA, more than he's going to be an instant NBA success story. I mean, Romeo Langford was such a better player than Jalen Hood Shafino. He gets drafted by the Celtics and is bounced around to the point where he's a Spur 1 minute. He was a Grizzly, I think, for a second. He's Jalen Hood Shafino is 2 years away from being Jordan Poole. I mean,
I disagree with that. I think he is a guy who, he's cerebral. The only thing he didn't do in his freshman year last year, and I watch all these guys, as all of us do, but he didn't shoot the ball that well. And he came into college with a reputation of somebody who could knock 3-point shots down. He didn't do that. But defensively, he was solid. Instinctively, passing the ball, he was solid. He was a very physical player. He's a superior athlete. I like him. I think he's going to come in. He's going to surprise a lot of people.
He's got some dog in him. I mean, I liked him too. What he really needs, I mean, if we could do this the right way, a guy like that would have a second year in college.
No question about it.
And he would develop that shot.
I agree.
And then maybe he'd come back for that third year where now he plays himself into, hey, I could be a top 3 pick in this draft. I mean, that's what could have happened, but as soon as that NBA temptation is there and dollars look like really going to be handed to you, it's hard to say no to that. So
I'll tell you one guy. I was talking to JD on the sideline of the Niner mini camp. One guy the Warriors are bringing in for a workout that I saw in Chicago that I think is a perfect Warrior is Ben Shepherd from Belmont, who's like a 6'6" 2 guard. I'm not saying he's Klay Thompson, but he's a phenomenal shooter and a mature player as 95.7 Brian said, they don't need projects. Shepherd ain't a project. Shepherd's got skill and could step into the rotation and play minutes for Curry, knows how to play. I do think that you better know how to play. I mean, I love the kid Vukovic because I think he can step in and play. I think he would be a great complement opposite Draymond Green. If you got Draymond Green, who's at your 5, your other big has to be able to shoot the ball. And Vukovic, I think in Draymond would be a beautiful combination. There, the question here is from Walter Washington, guys, who's making the major decision? Is it?
Well, first of all, is Ben Shepherd projected to drop just because of his age? Because he's a 4-year player, right? Is that why?
I don't think he's projected to drop. I think he played at Belmont, so a lot of people are like, "Who the hell's Ben Shepherd?" But he went to Chicago, and he was very, very impressive. And he's a mature kid, who's got length. I mean, he's a 6'6" guy with pretty good athleticism, but a beautiful shot. I mean, seriously, very smooth shooter.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going to make the call though? Who's one? I thought maybe my favorite part of the whole presser with Myers was they were like, are you guys gonna be ready for that? We'll be ready. And then Tim Kawakami, Joe puts his foot in his mouth by saying, I'm not, trying to be silly. I'm not going to, I'm not letting Bob out of here. Bob's going to have to stay until the 30th and this and that. And then Tim Kawakami asked the beautiful question, which was, oh, well, if he's going to be here, then is Bob running the draft? And it was like crickets. And then Bob said, well, I'm not really good at that, which is an interesting comment coming from a guy who played Draymond.
He was in jest.
No, of course he was in jest. No, but I think it actually, well, first of all, I don't think it was in jest. I think it's a revealing criticism of Bob by Joe from behind the scenes, because Bob has swung and missed at times, but he did draft Draymond Green.
Do you think he 35. Said that as a dig at Joe for criticizing him behind the scenes? Is that
because I think that's part of Joe's reason for wanting Bob out. Even though Joe's never said that, of course, Joe's publicly all about, oh, we love Bob. Why would Bob? I don't even know anything about Bob leaving, and I don't even know that. What's that?
He called him his fifth child.
Yeah, he's my child, which is also kind of demeaning.
He didn't want him out. He offered him a level of money that said, I want you to stay.
Yeah, but you know what? There's ways to do that. Bob Myers is leaving because Joe wants – I don't think Joe wants him there. I think Joe has held his feet to the fire on some of these failed first-round picks. And I think Bob saying, well, I mean, that's kind of what I'm not very good at. I thought that was a total dig at Joe Lacob and what he had probably said to Bob behind the scenes. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But let's just say this. According to Joe, Bob's not leaving till the end of the deal. But Bob ain't running the draft. Bob ain't making the pick, right? Who's making the pick?
They have 15 days between this
Who's making the pick?
We're recording right here and the NBA draft. It's 15 days away. So if it's going to be an out of the family, and I don't mean the Lacob family, if it's going to come from outside the Golden State Warriors, that hire basically needs to be consummated in the next 72 hours.
Agreed.
So it's probably Mike Dunleavy Jr.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Who's there as a guy who's never done it before, as a media shield for the obvious nepotism of giving somebody who doesn't deserve the job.
Guys, let me know what you think. This is what my prediction is that, and let me know what you think, if this is crazy or not. My guess is Kirk Lacob takes the president of basketball operations title. He's currently the executive VP in that same role. So my guess is he takes that job. Dunleavy Jr. gets the GM position. That way you have Dunleavy handle media. He's the face of personnel decision-making. You're kind of shutting down the nepotism criticism a bit for anyone that doesn't really, read into these things and is informed. That's my guess for what's going to happen. I don't know if you guys...
I mean, if you really want the best guy, wouldn't you? I mean, if you're Joe Lacob and you're a billionaire and you really care about the best guy, you'd go say, hey, go get me Sam Presti. But he doesn't want the best guy. He wants it's like Jerry Jones. You think Jerry Jones wanted the best guy, or do you think he wants to be able to do it himself? So he puts a stooge there. Mike Dunleavy has no credentials to be the general manager. He's never been a general manager ever. So why would he be the general manager? So, I mean, I think if Mike Dunleavy is the general manager, it's obvious that Joe himself or his sons are going to be the brain trust making the decisions, and Dunleavy's there to shield the criticism and to be the front man.
I see it a little bit more optimistically, and I don't think you're completely off base, but I'm a little bit more optimistic if it is Mike Dunleavy Jr. First of all, again, basketball straight up lifer. Knows the league as a player. He knows the league as the son of a player. His dad was a hell of a player. He has had more basketball conversations before he got to the NBA than most guys with NBA careers will have in their NBA career. He knows the league. He knows players inside and out, and he knows the DNA of this team because he's been around them for years.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would continue the tone that Bob Myers set for the organization, which is going to be a key factor in this next GM. I mean, they can't go from Bob Myers to saber rattling douchebag. They can't.
They should go to Larry Harris. He's the actual only guy in the organization with the credentials to do the job.
I don't think Larry wants that job at this point.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Career and life. I mean,
I don't know if he wants to take 15 calls a day from Joe. But Joe is making the pick.
That's the job, though. And that's,
Joe.
I'm telling you, that's one of the
Joe's
reasons
got his own
Bob Myers
board.
doesn't want this job anymore.
If an owner's got his own board, the owner's making the pick. Come on.
He has his own board. Here's
where I think there's a challenge with Mike Dunleavy Jr. I don't know him. I never met him. I've watched him a long time. Bob Myers' greatest strength, hypothetically, is how he dealt with the players. Particularly when there was trauma and strife. There's no way Mike Dunleavy Jr. is going to be able to have those, quote, tough conversations with Draymond or Klay or Steph. It doesn't mean they won't be professional, but particularly if these guys get extensions, like most of us think that they will, and they're sitting on money, he can make the pick and he can kind of be the general manager, but Bob Myers was kind of one of the guys. And that's the challenge, because that's not going to be Kurt Latham anyway. I actually think it empowers Steve Kerr, which is tough because he's really, really close to the action. So for him to be close to the action and be kind of the voice of reason, it's going to be really, really tough. Maybe Larry Harris is somebody who, maybe Iguodala moves into that role. I don't know, but I know Mike Dunleavy Jr. is not going to be able to have that nuanced role that Bob Myers had.
I just think it takes a genius to do this stuff. And are you really Mike Dunleavy, who's never been a general manager before, is going to look at Joe Lacob, the guy who gives him that opportunity. And when Joe says, you know what, me and my sons think we should go with this guy, he's going to say, no, we're not going with you. We're not going with you. We're your guys. We're going with my guy. No, he hires
no chance.
Okay, he hires Presti. And if you really think he's the guy that you think he is, then he'd tell Sam Presti no too. I mean,
if I'm Sam Presti, I'm saying, hey, here's my resume. Here's my resume. Get out of the room.
If he's going to be
go sit with the media.
He's going to be. It doesn't matter who the GM is.
Say that again.
Right? If he's going to be as meddlesome as you think he's going to be, then it doesn't matter who the GM is because it is Joe Lacob. So there you go.
I disagree. I think that, when you had Jerry West and you had a room full of basketball guys, there would be some pushback because
Joe is different.
And Joe had no experience.
Joe is at the telling anyone he wants to shut the hell up portion of his career in ownership. But that's what
which is why I think they're going to go down hard.
Look,
because the owners
go down hard with no matter amount of genius you throw at this. When it ends, it's gonna end.
Yeah, but it's only going to end if you don't draft guys.
You don't think teams can transition and maintain a level of success?
Yeah.
I mean
Spurs
did it, yeah.
Okay, so you go from
Miami's got a bunch of undrafted guys there in the finals.
To a Hall of Famer. If you get so if you draft at 19 a Hall of Famer, everything's going to be fine. Okay. Yeah. That's going to be great. But outside of that, in the history of basketball, from Magic Johnson to Michael Jordan to Tim Duncan not Tim Duncan, because did have the Kawhi thing. But how about this? Every team but the Spurs, when your best player leaves, you bottom out for several seasons in a row.
Well, then, but then, how do you make sense of the Joe arrogant statement with Bob sitting right there? We are going to win
because he thinks
like a petulant child. I mean, seriously,
he thinks like a venture capitalist. He sees success in his.
But if you're right, then he's wrong. Right? If you're right, he's wrong. If you're right, when the best players get old, you're done. Then they aren't. To me, if there's one reason that Bob left, is because Joe's got unrealistic expectations. He was probably miserable as they were winning. He was calling Bob constantly, and now Bob's looking at this going, wait a second, my core's eroding. I don't have any way to really rebuild this team. So I agree with you, Damon. We're going to take a step back, but I got Joe basically maintaining that we will not be taking a step back. So that sounds like hell on earth. That
fury.
Managing expectations is a big part about being a general manager. We had Ned Coletti on in a live stream last week, and we talked a little bit about managing the expectations of ownership. I think Joe's expectations it's great to feel like, Joe's got a sense of arrogance about him that's off the charts. I mean, we will continue to do it. No, you won't. Why? Because you said so?
Every stock trader thinks he's got nothing but winners. It's and if I lose money on this stock today, I'm going to find the next great stock tomorrow.
Well,
and
I like what Nick J.
about this.
I like what Nick J. wrote in the comments, though, and it's a great point. Is he asked, "Who is the Spurs owner?" I honestly couldn't tell you, and that's a great point. Lacob loves the attention, man. That is part of who he is. It's translated to 4 titles. It's hard to complain, but I'm not. I don't know, man. I don't have like the white flag mentality that when Steph's time is up, that it's just over. Like you can still, like the whole purpose of Kuminga, Moody was to have a transition period so that they don't fall into this, this deep black pit of losing year after year. Even teams like the Lakers, you bring in Magic Johnson, they had a fast turnaround, man. It wasn't long before Kobe and Shaq picked that thing back up again. The front office is a huge part of it. Replacing Bob Myers with Mike Dunleavy Jr., I don't think any of us knows that that's going to translate to success. It doesn't smell great, but we'll have to see.
I mean, the right series of moves will put them, on the bottom. The right series of moves will put them on the top. I mean, it's not that complicated. There is a series of moves out there. It's about having the right visionary general manager, not, you know what? I'm a billionaire and my son's always wanted to do this. And, it isn't that easy. And to just pretend like just because I'm a self-made billionaire, on the power of my statement, what he really should have said is, you know what? Bob's done an incredible job here. And if we can have half as much success in the next 10 years as we've had in the last 10 years with Bob, we'll be very fortunate. Instead, he's so arrogant. He stands up there and he's like, we will continue to win. And it's like, you know what? If anybody holds his feet to the fire on that, you know what somebody should have said is, hey, and Joe, if you don't continue to win, can we attack you and basically leave you for dead on the side of the road and force you out? Because that's preposterous. That they're just going to be able to keep it, reinvent themselves. It's all about assets and building and vision. And who's that guy? To me, if there's one guy in the organization that potentially could be that guy, it's Larry Harris. But I'm not sure that Larry Harris is going to be given the keys to the kingdom. I think it's going to be Dunleavy, but Dunleavy's going to be there as, hey, we're going to give you a job that you never have had before and may not deserve, so that we can have total final say and tell you what to do. And you'll basically be our shield so that like Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, like in draft day for the Cowboys, they show the Cowboy room. Where's Will McClay, the head scout? He's not sitting at the table. He's off to the side. It's Jerry and Stephen. Was Jerry a genius? Well, I don't know. He's got 3 Super Bowls, but he hasn't won dick since he chased out Jimmy Johnson. And I think Joe Lacob's headed down that road. I really do.
That Barry Switzer Super Bowl was the worst thing that could have happened to the Cowboys because he just fed Jerry Jones' ego. But besides that, I think Damon might have a point, though, in that Larry Harris, the fact that he's in this position where no one really knows who he is, that's a good thing. Like, that means attention is never coming down on you, even if it means, like, you're not getting credit for some, swings that you hit a home run into. He might love it. But, Larry, you're also, him. So if you're telling us that he wants that job, then he wants that job. But look, Bob Myers had that vision, and it's going to be hard to replace someone who was somehow able to flip Kevin Durant saying, I'm out of here, for Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga. Like, that to me still will go down as one of the greatest moves ever as a GM. And you're right. Who knows how that's going to get replaced, man. It sucks.
I don't think the Warriors have to suck, though. I mean, that's and we're kind of alluding. I mean, Damon was kind of alluding to that. It's not the fact that you go through transitions, as Larry said. It's how fast you turn it around. And I think that maybe the biggest issue with the Warriors is who succeeds Steve Kerr. I think that's a big deal because there was a guy on the bench last year in Mike Brown who I think, generally speaking, everybody thought, this guy's a damn good coach. He's impacting the Warriors' success. I don't know if you look at that bench right now and you look at a guy and go, yeah, if Kerr's back goes out for 30 games, they got a guy right there. I mean, there's name recognition, but is there a guy right there. And I think that might be a couple of years from now what really determines whether or not the Warriors continue to rebuild their success and ascend like they want to, or they kind of fall off the cliff.
How about this? Kurt Lakeup, general manager, Joe's other son, Kent Lakeup, head coach.
Oh,
Joe, the number
Sign
one
me up.
assistant.
Let's do it.
No, at that point,
How much would you pay to have Joe be the coach? Just to see him on the sideline every night. That
just
would be
get
awesome.
Nikki Lightyears to do it in her sequin boots and the matching purse. She's the best dressed woman in the NBA. Why not have her do it? No,
I mean, the Lightyears quote is a little glimpse into Joe Lakeup. Come on, I mean, he thinks he is very, very smart, and he is.
He is.
But just because you're smart in other worlds doesn't mean you are now Jerry West in basketball. You're not. I mean, all I'll say to anybody who says that Joe's a genius and his kids are geniuses, Alan Smiley-Geach. Remember, we were told about how Alan Smiley-Geach was going to be like the secret to the future for the Warriors.
But look,
I can't play dead
for scoring mistakes against everyone. Let me tell you who Larry Harris loved.
Who?
Told me, don't say this on the air, but we're drafting this kid, and I love him, and he's going to be a star in this league. He loved Jacob Evans out of Cincinnati.
Oh boy,
loved him.
He also loved Eric Pascal too.
He loved Eric Pascal. Loved Eric Pascal.
Yeah.
But
I mean, these guys are Hall of Famers compared to Smiley-Geach.
Sure. But look, Smiley-Geach, who knows why the hell that didn't work? I mean, it was because
he couldn't play.
Flyer.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, and let's be honest. I mean, Jerry West has swung and missed too. And personnel evaluation is people evaluating people is an imperfect thing, and you'll never go bat 100%, about 1,000%.
And especially if your picks are always late first round, second round, like it's so hard to be consistent.
There's no. I mean, it's not easy. It's really, 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 really hard to do. Hey, Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, Damon, I know you had a time frame with the kids and the wife and the whole deal.
I'm about to get in trouble. So
yeah, seriously, I don't want to
wrap up here. How are we wrapping up real quick?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say if you have a final thought before we'll continue on without you for a few more minutes, because I do want to throw a couple things to these guys on Trey Lance and a couple more thoughts. But
all right, good.
I just want to be sensitive to the fact. I don't want you to. I don't want to ruin. I don't want to ruin the David Bruce marriage.
The Car Gods wrote something interesting, which I agree with. I feel like it should be focused on more, which is where are the G League players who were supposed to be developed by this phenomenal system that they invested all this money into in Santa Cruz, and I'm not seeing any results there, man. So it's a good point.
There it is. Yeah,
Yeah, what the Miami have done is
I'll say this. I wouldn't mind 5% of what they are paying Delos and all those guys. What happened to we're going to develop James Wiseman? The other dig that I got to get your thoughts on. Don't you think Bob Myers dug at Joe when he said Joe really, really likes size?
Yes.
Don't you think that was an obvious Joe? That was like Bob on the way out the door saying Joe wanted Wiseman. Wasn't it?
Yeah, I might have gone with LaMelo Ball, but Joe wanted the big guy. But here's the thing. I'm not going to fault Joe for that, because you know who also wanted James Wiseman? This guy. I did too. I'm not going to lie and pretend that I didn't. I thought James Wiseman was the pennies from heaven if Minnesota's dumb enough to take, the other guy in front of him. And so I'm not going to go revisionist history on what I thought at the time.
We still can't judge it. We still can't judge it.
He might be a really good player in this league one day.
He might. I mean, probably not, but we still don't know for sure yet. But I don't remember anyone. Look, I guarantee if you pull out receipts from 2020, there was no one who I don't know anyone who was hating on that pick, right? Like there was no one who was saying the Warriors drafted a bust. Like no one was saying that back.
I don't hate the pick.
I'm more hating on the trade.
Yeah,
and I didn't even mind the trade when they got Sadiq Bey. I just didn't like it when they moved Sadiq Bey for GP2 and put all their cards on this year. Dude, imagine if you had Sadiq Bey going forward.
That sucks.
I don't know.
Agree.
Yeah, I don't hate the Wiseman trade. And again, I think one of the things that really rubs me the wrong way is The onus is on the player to somehow develop himself. The coaches you got 19 coaches, and most of them are friends with the head coach or the general manager or this guy, that guy, or the owner's son or whatever, the high school coach. Yo, man, coaching is scarce. All right? It really is. True. And I'll give you a perfect example. What the Miami Heat organization is doing, it's not magic. They have a fundamental plan of how to develop players. It doesn't mean they'll be all-stars, but what it means is that these players reach their full potential. The Warriors players don't necessarily reach their full potential beyond this core Hall of Fame 3. Most organizations suck at player development is because the best coaches, well, I'm not going to say the best coaches, but there's a lot of great coaches in college and in high school. Like, for example, Kansas. You draft a Kansas player. He might not be an all-star, but that kid is going to come out of Kansas ready to play and to contribute. It's not magic. And I think that the organizations get off the hook and the onus is on the players, and not enough of the responsibility or blame goes to these organizations.
One last thought on the Warriors before we say goodbye to Damon. I've already kind of stated what I would do. I really believe you got to hit in the draft. I like this kid Vukovic. That's the route I would go. And I don't think he's a project. I think he's an incredible shooter. And I'd find a way to get Grady Dick, who's represented by my good buddy Bill Duffy. And I think the league's missing out on Dick too. I think he's probably going to go, 9 through 12. Mm-hmm. And I think he should go top 5. I think I think I would gamble on 2 guys with tremendous skill. I see people compared Grady Dick to Kevin Huerter. I think he's way more closer to Klay Thompson than Kevin Huerter. And Vukovic, a lot of people think it's a sleeper round 2, but I think I'd take him at 19 and jump everybody in line there. And that's how I would turn it around. And then I would try to attract some guys like Damian Lee, who I like, and maybe Seth Curry to come join this mix and try to attack the free agent market with nothing and just say, hey, come join us. But I'm going with skill. I've learned a lot from watching Miami. Miami's got a lot of skill. I like their skill. I like the Warriors adding more skill. That's the route I would go. Give me
Seth Curry, and you could say, the marketing could be there's always a Curry on the court at all times.
That's right. Curry. Go with Seth and Damian Lee, bring the family back together, and then trade Jordan Poole, add some picks. I love that kid from Indiana, Dale Davis's kid. Maybe later, Trace Jackson Davis.
I'll leave you with that. Like you wouldn't. Here's the thing.
You like him that much, huh?
Let's say. I love him at 19. I mean, that's the thing. I like him at 19. If he's there at 19.
But beyond 19, if I said, Damon, you're the new Bob Myers, give me like some path. I just gave you mine. I'm going youth and skill in the draft and trying to attract free agents, guys with skill who want to be here. And I agree with your assessment, Damon, that in a lot of ways, it has to be about getting Steph one more ring. But I believe you do it by getting skill players around him, because I don't think he can shoulder the whole load anymore. But give me your thoughts, because I would love all 3 of your guys' thoughts. What direction do you go?
I'm not trying
to you go for a huge deal for Zion Williamson. There's going to be a bunch. Do you make a big trade? Who do you
Zion, by the way?
Today? Zion had a day of. I
didn't hear about it.
He's got baby mamas. He's got a porn star who's saying I might be pregnant too. No, Zion.
Yeah, he released this video of like a gender reveal party. Like it was like a YouTube thing.
All right.
And then some porn star came out on Twitter and was like, "Oh, thanks for letting me know this way that you're cheating on me." And she's posting some graphic stuff about what they used to do. It's good. Boy. It's a great old family.
He's raw dogging me too. This guy. Here's the thing. What we have here is a case of side chick thought she was main chick. And that means Zion at least knows how to keep a secret, but he can't.
Let's go around the room and just give me either name a veteran or a path that you can verbalize that you would like to see the Warriors go down, and that you would sign off on if you were the new Bob Myers.
Come to think of it, I think I'm going with Zion Williamson. I kind of respect the game, all things considered.
For the drama.
No, look, honestly, this is going to feel like a cop-out answer because I don't think that there really is a solution to help them now in this draft. I've seen what the Warriors have done with their rookies. I've seen what they've done with high drafted rookies, low drafted rookies. And even if they do get Steph Curry in this draft, remember, it took Steph Curry 4 years to become Steph Curry. So there is no, I don't believe, instant solution, good NBA player ready to go to help the Warriors win a championship. If I am the general manager, I'm befriending, I am getting in with Patrick Baldwin Jr., Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole, and Moses Moody. And I'm saying, guys, this shit is on you. It is on you. Everyone here is no longer a rookie, and some of you, it's even longer than that. It's time for all of you to nut up, put on your big boy sneakers, and be ready to play some big boy minutes in the biggest boy league there is. I think Moses Moody is more key to helping the Warriors back to contention than any player that they're going to add in the draft, unless this player in the draft, again, is flipped to become some sort of veteran presence, an amalgamation of veteran presence that is now going to stabilize a second unit. Because Warriors' first unit is still tits. It's still awesome. That first unit cooked and pretty much did all year with all their flaws even built into them. The Warriors lost being the Warriors from 6 through 12, not 1 through 5.
Yep.
So they still got something going, and getting the 6 through 12 that you already got to get their heads out of their ass and onto that court and playing really good. Moses Moody could be the guy. And look, maybe again, the big step forward for Patrick Baldwin Jr., and he is now a factor. To me, there is no easy solution. I think that they're probably 2 years away from another NBA Finals appearance, which means now you're at you're getting to the end of Steph Curry, getting to the end of Draymond. What the hell is Klay Thompson going to be 2 years from now? Again, threading the needle here is going to be tough.
You don't believe in Kuminga, Damon?
Huh?
You don't believe in Kuminga?
No, I do, but he's got, it's got to happen. He needs to develop in a way that is more rapid than normally happens. I like him. I like Kuminga. Do I love him? I mean, there's the thing. There's only one untradeable asset on this team. His name is Stephen Curry. Everybody else is in play as far as I'm concerned. So
that's fair. I wouldn't trade Looney, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Well, yeah, no, but yeah, Looney, value. He's not going anywhere. The franchise, he's not going anywhere. But look, I really mean it. I don't mean to be the dauber down, but I can't figure out the way that this ends well. And you can talk about all it is, good decisions and execution of a clear plan. Every single team in the NBA thinks that they've got those 3 things ready to fucking go every year, and there's like 3-4 teams that are actually good.
Damon, by the way, on the bottom of the screen, it says subscribe to Damon Bruce Plus on YouTube.
Yes.
So
I just had my sources tell me in a text message that Damon's wife is actually not calling for him, and that he's actually leaving to go join the Northern California Sports Network for a guest hit. So is that
Yeah. Will you be joining Dan Coach Emilio and 11 other special people? No.
Subscribe and find out.
There you go.
Damon, we'll let you go.
Man. I'll reach out to you. I've been in a slumber. I apologize for Locked On. And Frank, you too. I've been on a Locked On Warrior slumber. I'm going to wake up soon and get things going, and I hope to have you on.
We'll see you guys. Great to join you. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. Larry, take care, man.
There you go. The great Damon Bruce. All right. Now let me get your guys' thoughts. Go ahead. Frank, why don't we go with you? If you Frank Red becomes the new Bob Myers,
right?
What's your direction? What are you looking for?
I'm calling Sean in Brooklyn to see what's up with Ben Simmons. Are you guys going to give it another try, or are you interested in moving him for a talented young guy in Jordan Poole? The salaries match up. Jordan makes $30 million. Ben Simmons makes $30 million. The thing about Ben is Ben only has 2 years left on his deal, and
he plays defense.
Yeah, I just think that he needs culture, and I think that the Warriors have great culture. I disagree with no rookie can help you. Last time I checked, Christian Braun was out there in the NBA championship looking like the new Dan Marley. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Who's it? Who?
The new Dan Marley. Dan Marley played for the Suns. Christian
No,
Braun.
before him,
Brown.
Marley. Who are you talking about?
No, I said Christian Braun, the rookie.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, so like when I hear people say that, and I've watched this kid for 4 years, you see his shoulders. This dude now is like, Denver is looking at him saying, can he start? Can he make enough shots to start? So the idea that a young player who has experience playing basketball can't contribute on a team with veterans, I think is bullshit. You know what I'm saying? So Leonard Miller is a guy who I like from a skill perspective. He's not a small forward. He's not a power forward. He's a basketball player. He kind of reminds me of like Lamar Odom a little bit. He can do a lot of stuff, man. And I like if you trade Jordan Poole, I like Shapino if he's available. You know what I'm saying? So those are two guys that I like who can come in and establish themselves from a defensive perspective and also get better offensively. But
could you play Simmons at the 1 and start to play Steph off ball more?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's interesting because now then you would have two dominating defenders in Simmons and Green. You also might have two non-shooters, but I think Simmons, watching Steph play off the ball might be exactly what freshens him up.
He's 6'10" too. That's the thing. I mean, Ben Simmons was not a good rebounder. He was a great rebounder. And his ability to snatch and run and start breaks, that would make Klay Thompson a better player because it would reserve the energy. He would be more of a Miami Heat type of player where he's running to a spot with nobody guarding him because the defense is going to rush to try to get Ben, and he'll have more open shots. So there is
also
a vision.
Pack the house, Frank. The other thing is that the reason I like that idea is that you put Ben Simmons on the ball. Joe's getting what he wants to. The house would be packed, and it would be a hell of a show. It really would be, right?
Absolutely. I thought you were going. Well, all of the Kardashian crowd was going to check the Warriors out, but
no. I think it would be a great show. I like
him. I'm not ready to give up on that guy. If the Warriors can get him within their organization again, because I know that culture matters, and I think that these veteran guys would be it would almost be euphoric to have this piece of talent who's had such a fall to be a reclamation project. I still think Iguodala somehow, some way is going to be a part of what the Warriors do. So I'm excited about what's going to happen within the next 2 or 4 weeks. I really am.
By the way, Trent Baalke weighing in. He said, Cyrus ripping NorCal Sports Network. What a joke, man. Get a life, buddy. That's my Trent Baalke. Trent, take a chill pill. We're just having a little fun. Go run over and tell Danny, oh my God, Cyrus. Relax. All right, Cy. Give me your thought. If you are Bob Myers.
Well, the Warriors are in a really tricky position because it's hard to answer this question without knowing if they're going to go over the $400 million because right now, again, if you keep things the way they are, you draft number 19, you fill the rest of your roster positions with veteran minimums, you're going to be spending approximately $490 million next year on basically the same team that just got bounced in the second round of the playoffs.
But before we start passing the hat for Joe, you bought the asset for what, $400 million, and it's worth like $5 billion.
Agreed.
I think he's going to be okay. I mean,
I'm not defending that. This is also the same owner, though, who a year ago did not match the Trailblazers and let Gary Payton II walk for nothing. And then 6 months later, traded Wiseman to get him back to save money. The money thing is clearly a variable that you have to consider with him. You have to. This is the same guy who lowballs everyone, but he lowballed Stephen Curry in the contract extensions talks when he didn't want to give him more than 4 years. And then Steph and his representation was like, what the hell are you doing? And then he acquiesced and gave him that 5th year.
That was embarrassing, really.
So Blake, when it comes to money, it's hard to predict. He usually errs on the side of saving money. So here's the best possible trade I came up with. And it came back with mixed results, but most of the mixed results or the negativity is because people don't understand that it's not easy to lop $90 million off your budget while still having a good team. But I came up with a trade if the Timberwolves would agree to this trade. And that's a huge if, because when I proposed this and then I did a show with the Locked On Timberwolves host, Ben Beacon, his response was Jordan Poole. But I wanted Karl Anthony Towns. And I thought, and the numbers would match up. You'd give the Timberwolves depth. You'd solve their center logjam because they also want to re-sign Naz Reid. So I don't know how they're going to continue.
And Cat and Draymond fit. There's no doubt their games fit together.
Now, look, Carl, I get the criticism. Karl Anthony Towns has defensive issues.
What is the criticism? I don't get it. To me, he's uber talented.
Doesn't play hard all the time. That's the criticism.
Yeah, but I also think that sometimes a culture shift is exactly what a player needs. This is a player who could achieve greatness. And so if that trade goes through, you have a starting five now of Steph, Klay, Wiggins, Dre, and Cat, a player who, by the way, at 7 feet can shoot the three as well as anyone. One thing that continually gets lost in these discussions, besides the fact that the team has to potentially lop off $90 million, is who the hell is going to be the second scorer on this team? Like that is one thing that has really become a major issue and was an issue in the postseason with Klay Thompson no longer being this lights out shooter that he was and lights out scorer. Is they don't have a solid second option for Steph. And unless they figure that out, I don't know if they're going to win a championship. Cat solves that. You now get your second scorer. You now suddenly get a 7-footer who, even if he is just average defensively, being 7 feet helps, man. Your rebounding issues are solved. Kevon Looney comes off the bench. And then you just have to be incredibly, fortunate with your veteran minimums. But if you go on various websites to see all the available free agents out there, there's a lot of talent. Dude, Seth Curry, I've proposed him as well, simply because Under Armour can figure out the financial part of that. That's the perk of Steph being your brother. So that's my best plan is you're trading Jordan Poole. You're trading, unfortunately, Kuminga and Moody. And then you even trade under this deal Gary Payton II, another player who I think will be cut in some regard, just because he's scheduled to make $9 million next year. And that making this deal will save you $90 million. So it's GP2, Moody, Kuminga, Poole, plus 2 first-round picks, and you're getting back Karl Anthony Towns. So that's the trade I came up with. It works if the Timberwolves agree to it. If you're as the Warriors, you're still championship contenders. You're potentially getting that 5th ring for Steph. And then Karl Anthony Towns is young. He's 27. So you're also, getting a solid player back. So that's my idea.
These are great ideas. I mean, seriously, these are great ideas. Yeah. And in some ways, I almost feel like my idea of going young could almost happen simultaneously with one of your ideas. You know what I mean? Sure. Like you could do the Simmons ad and get you maybe couldn't get Grady Dick, but you could get this Vukovic kid that I'm so in love with. Yeah. And you could go the Karl Anthony Towns route and still, hit in the draft as well. So, but I think those are both really good names. One, because I think it would also pack the house. I think Jordan, Joe wants a box office hit, and he wants it all. He wants a box office hit. He wants to get Steph another ring. And the upside potential. The basketball fans here would love. I'd love to see, after watching Wiggins in Minnesota, I'd love to see what Karl Anthony Towns out of Minnesota here would look like. And then I'm also a believer that there's another chapter of Ben Simmons' career coming. Now, I don't know that he was ever motivated because he got paid before he got skilled. But in some ways, I really like Frank's idea blended with my idea. I'm saying go for shooting in the draft. The Warriors already have shooting. If you could get a lot of shooting added to the shooters you already have, which we know are already top tier, and you could somehow say, Ben, here's the ball. The ball's in your hands, and we got a roster full of guys who can drain it. And all you got to do is run the court, play defense, and distribute, and really simplify the game for him and not be in this, how good of a shooter is he? How good? He's not a bad shooter. He's not a good perimeter shooter or a free throw shooter. But I mean, to me, I don't see a broken guy. I see a guy who doesn't really understand how he fits. And on a Warrior team that has awesome shooting around him, that would be really fun to watch. A 6'10" guy with the ball on a string, and you've got Klay and Steph and Moody, and maybe this kid Vukovic, and all kinds of shooting all around that. That would be, I'd pay to see that. I would pay to see that show, and I think that might be able to climb the mountaintop. Before we end this thing, there is one thing I want to show you guys. There's a super chat here from the Car Gods.
Okay.
Who says, no, we're switching gears again, but this will be our final topic. The Car God says, guys, why are all the Spanish sports networks, ESPN Deportes, Fox BN Sky, and Spanish reporting that Trey Lance will get moved before the regular season starts? Who is leaking this out? Okay, so I don't know anything about this, Car Gods, to be totally honest. No, nothing. I saw Trey play today at minicamp in Santa Clara. I thought he looked pretty good. I'm going to share the screen, though, and I want to show you guys something. This is a tweet, or this was shared on Twitter by Ryan Hensley. Now, I can't watch this normally because he's blocked me, right? But he put this somehow this got picked up. This is Ryan Hensley tweeting out Trey Lance's Trey Lance shared this on his Instagram. I want you to watch this video, and I think we're going to be able to.
Can you press that big button, the one on the bottom right that expands it so we can see the full screen?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Wait a second. Where do I hit the? Where's the
bottom left? Bottom left.
Wait a second. It's beneath. Let me hit the circle and then I'll grow it. Here we go.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, here it is.
You're not supposed to know. Life is a mystery. If you take away the mystery and everything was certain, you would need faith. Faith functions best when you don't know. So God often puts us in positions where we don't know to destabilize us from relying too much on what we know. Yeah.
I mean, we can watch it one more time if you want. That to me was really interesting. Yeah, we got the gist.
Frank, I'm sorry to speak on your behalf, Frank.
No.
Let me stop sharing so we get back
with
to
you. Yeah, I got it.
What? First of all, I always like Steve Harvey. He's one of my favorite guys.
He's funny.
I think he's funny, but not only that, I think there's something really likable about Steve Harvey. I just think he doesn't take himself too seriously, and I just like him. I don't know him, and I don't know anybody who knows him. And I don't know who that guy was that he was interviewing.
TD Jakes. He's a great TD Jakes. He's a kind of the nation's pastor, if you will, has a tremendous congregation down in Texas. So
Trey put that out there, and a lot of people feel like that was Trey kind of saying, I know I'm going to be traded. I don't know where I'm going to be traded to. And so I don't know the future. So I am where my feet are, so to speak. I'm just going to focus every day on getting better. But it was almost kind of like maybe he's resigned to the reports that are out there that seem to indicate that the 49ers, once they get Brock Purdy back and that they'll find a new home for Trey and move him on. The only thing I'll say is that, man, the 49ers actions here, they've stated perfectly clearly that they want to go with Brock Purdy. Then they bring in Sam Darnold at the beginning of free agency. Sam Darnold started at the end of last year, technically without anybody without the entire NFL finding their quarterback. He decided to come here to be number 3 on the depth chart. That was the first kind of curious move that I was kind of looking at those tea leaves going, well, what's going on there? And then since then, Joe Burrow's backup, Brandon Allen, who was the number 2 guy in Cincinnati, has now signed with the 49ers to be their number 4 guy behind Brock and Trey and Darnold, which is even weirder, right? Why would a guy who's a backup to Joe Burrow now sign with the 49ers to be number 4? And then today in Santa Clara, the 49ers are working out Jack Cohn, for former Notre Dame quarterback, who would make sense as like your 3rd string guy, maybe on the practice squad, but he would be technically their 5th quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like they're establishing a surplus of quarterbacks, and most teams, when they establish a surplus, they're looking to trade off of that. While this is going on, Ian Rappaport has been saying really for months that the 49ers are going to wind up trading Trey Lance. People think I'm rooting for this. I'm not, because I predicted Trey Lance to be damn good, and I still think he's going to be damn good. I predicted it after hearing all this, really before Rappaport made his whole statements. But then on draft day, when Trey was not traded, Rappaport, instead of going, you know what, I was wrong. I thought Trey was going to get dealt, but I'm wrong, and he's going to be there. He didn't have that take. His take was, well, later this summer when things are more clear with Brock Purdy's health, he suggested that Trey would be traded at some point this summer. Now we are here in June. Camp's a month away. Purdy appears to be healthy. We don't know for sure, but that's the way it appears. I don't know what's going on here, but that is what is your read on Trey Lance's Instagram post there? What's your takeaway from that? It seems like a young man who feels like he's going to be moving on. He doesn't know where. He doesn't have any control over it, and is just trying to have fun and just trying to on the football field again and trying to develop his game, but without really knowing what his future holds. I don't know what to make of the whole thing. I do find it really interesting, that's for sure. And God knows it's a huge story because the quarterback is everything in the NFL, and Trey's a huge talent. George Kittle told us yesterday in Santa Clara that Trey is gotten significantly better from last year to this year. Trent Williams was very glowing in his comments about Trey, and it's pretty clear that Trey is improving, but it's also pretty clear the 49ers want to go with Brock Purdy, and Trey's fifth-year option, which will be, I guess, next year, is a high-priced option, and they probably won't want him to pay him that much money if he's not going to be the starter. That's all based on his draft position. What do you think's going on here, guys? What do you take anything from that posting from Trey and read anything into it? Either one of you, really.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, go ahead, Frank.
No, go ahead, man. You can go.
I think I agree with you in the sense that the message I got was, I don't know what the hell's going to happen here. I could be gone. I could stay. And what's the point in stressing over not knowing? That's the impression I got from that. And look, and I agree with you, Larry. This is a play. I mean, look, the Niners at the time gave up the farm to trade up and get this kid. It's not like he's suddenly not talented anymore. I mean, he's a physical specimen. He's got wheels in addition to a fantastic arm. I mean, the clips I'm seeing of him show a throwing motion that is light years, no pun intended, from the earlier discussion, from what he was just a year ago, let alone 2 years ago. I mean, he looks his throwing mechanics look clean. So I see improvement there. I don't think you can have enough depth at the quarterback position. So if they keep him, that's awesome, because who knows when Brock Purdy's going to come back. And again, he's a gifted player. So why not keep him? Right. I mean, that's my thought on it.
I think it's about finance and economics. I mean, by the time you have a guy in their fifth year and you're making a salary that's commensurate with a starter, then theoretically he should be a starter. So I think from an economic standpoint, the 49ers are looking at that. But to give the 49ers credit, they could have traded him earlier. They have coached him up for 4 years. And that's admirable, because I think that they have an excellent coaching staff. I think Greasy is kind of a football savant in a lot of ways. I mean, he's a solid football guy. So I think Trey Lance has to get better if he's a willing student. So might be the numbers game that he will never be the 49ers quarterback. And that's okay. As far as I'm concerned, no checks have ever bounced. All right. What I don't like, and like the video to me was like, I didn't look at that about where I'm going to go. The message that I got was, you don't know what my destiny is going to be as a quarterback. I know, but it doesn't make any sense for me to go out and tell everybody how great I am and all these things I'm going to do if I haven't done it. What I got was, give me the opportunity and I'll show you what I can do. That's the theme of the video to me. And I'm ready to take that on. Now, usually I don't really comment about the chat, but Chris Sims, I do not like his analysis at all. I don't. And I'm going to tell you what, this is Phil Sims' kid. Yeah. I'm going to tell you why not. Because coming out of high school, this dude was a top-notch quarterback, highly rated, 5-star, and all of that crap. And by year 4 or 5, whatever, he didn't have a distinguished college career at Texas. And he barely was like a journeyman in the NFL. If you're going to tell me that a kid is not good, then explain to me why. Don't just use language just bombshell the guy, because there is teaching. There is fundamentals. Like, he made a stupid comment about Jalen Hurts. Well, I wouldn't put Jalen Hurts here because he didn't have a great game in the Super Bowl. Are you out of your mind? You know what I'm saying? So I mean, but like, everybody knows that you got your job because of your dad. You know what I'm saying? So, which is okay. I have no problem with that. But be an expert. Don't be like a hot take guy. And I just don't like that, man. I don't know if I've ever agreed with anything he's ever said. Trey Lance, I actually would like to see him get traded because I think that cerebrally, Purdy is more in line with Shanahan, and Sam Darnold is a starter, in my opinion. Sam Darnold won like 4 out of 7 games last year in Charlotte. Played his ass off. This guy can ball. And it wouldn't surprise me if he started 4 or 5 games with the 49ers this year.
One more thing I want to show you guys. This also is another this was another deal today. This was Greg Papa, who we all know from CamBR. This is on CamBR's Twitter. Let me see if I can.
The Bison personnel pack.
This is what Greg said.
If
and
Brandon
then
Allen is as impressive as they think he is.
Hold on a second. This is what they put on their Twitter.
If Brandon Allen is as impressive as they think he is, would the 49ers be open to trading Trey Lance at some point this offseason that Trey has improved? Do you have to wait a little while? Would you do that more before the deadline? Would you do it at all? The way quarterbacks get hurt around here, you got to be careful because you wind up playing 3 just about every year except for the Super Bowl year of 2019. So is Brandon Allen, is that the kind of guy you want to cut? And now that you're going to a third QB, emergency QB, if Trey's not one of your top 2, then you can't run the Bison personnel package where he comes in to run like he did, at the end of the first half in the home opener of his rookie year against Green Bay. Only time he could come into if he's QB3 behind Brock and Sam Darnold, then he's not up on game day unless it's an emergency. Then you can't run Bison personnel with him. So, then Allen would be more of a guy you would develop and have as your third quarterback. If Brandon.
There we go. Let me stop sharing that. Come back to you guys. That's kind of interesting too. He's saying, that the idea of using Trey in some packages as a runner goes away if Darnold is actually your number 2 because you don't have 3 active on game day. Or, the new rule is you can have that third quarterback active after the first 2 go down. But like, you're wasting any kind of package that you might have with Trey if he's, indeed the third quarterback to Sam Darnold. I'm just not convinced that Sam Darnold is any good either, to be honest, as far as I say either, but I'm not convinced that Sam Darnold's a starting NFL quarterback. He's had 5 years to he was a 2018 draft choice, so we haven't really seen Sam have success. Trey's a little bit more projectable because he's only had 4 starts, and to me, when a guy who played 1 year of organized football after high school has only had 4 NFL starts, can we really make an evaluation? I think it was a risky pick because it was an unprecedented type player, but it's equally risky to trade him because I think there's a very real possibility that he's going to blossom somewhere else. So this is like the 49ers with a serious fork in the road here. What do they do? I just think that, it's one of those things, some guy, hey, I'm dating this girl, but I don't want my ex-girlfriend to go anywhere else. Well, you know what? It's like, if you love her, set her free kind of a thing. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you really want to go with Brock Purdy and you want to make that commitment, and I think the 49ers made that evaluation at the end of last year. After the playoffs, they got together as a staff, and sometime between the combine when they spoke publicly and when the Philadelphia Eagles eliminated them, they agreed as a staff they were going forward with Brock Purdy, and they were committing to it. And that was my read on the situation, that they were going to commit to Brock and move Trey on. And I just think that they're hedging a little bit. They're worried about it. They don't want to get nothing. They're saying all the right things. They want to see Trey develop. He has developed. But I think what we're seeing in camp is he has one great throw. Then there's an inconsistency. We're not seeing consistent anything. We're seeing glimpses, but not consistency. And so I think they like him. I think they like Trey. Almost all the things they say positively about him are about his work ethic and his character and his effort and his desire. I asked Greasy about him. He said, hey, look, credit to him. He's really put in the effort. And, people have acknowledged that he's improved. But, I've never heard Shanahan or Lynch or Peters or anybody really on the record saying, what I really love is I love his accuracy, or I love his deep passing ability, or I love his off-schedule nature, or his ability to create, or his courage in the pocket. It's never about his football. It's always about his character, and it's always about his effort. And I just feel like they're doing that intentionally because they don't really believe in that. That's my read. That's not them telling me that. And that I just think that they're sticking to what they know, which they know he's a great kid. They know he's a great person. And so they keep complimenting his character while not complimenting his football. It'd be like, hey, I love Jordan Poole. Man, he tries hard. And I love Jordan Poole, his work ethic. And we never talked about his three-point shooting or his dribbling or anything like that. It's like, eventually it's like, well, what about Jordan, the basketball player? And in this case, what about Trey, the football player, not necessarily the person? So I don't know. I don't think it's even necessarily that they don't like Trey Lance. I just think that the Niners have some pressure on them to win, and that Brock Purdy's timeline fits their timeline because they're not willing to give away any more NFL seasons for the quarterback due to injury or development. And I just think it's as simple as that. It's not about Brock or Trey. It's about Brock's timeline jives with their timeline, where Trey's timeline is more like a year or two off. And I think they're looking at big Trent Williams and Nick Bosa and George Kittle and saying, well, 3 years from now, when Trey's ready to win a Super Bowl, Trent's going to be in retirement, and Bosa's and Kittle are going to be maybe on the downside. I think that's the evaluation. It's not really anti-Trey. It's more about, we got to win now. They're not ahead of schedule anymore. It's now they got there in 2019. They didn't get it done. They were ahead of schedule against Kansas City. Now here 2023, they're no longer ahead of schedule. In fact, their Super Bowl window, you could argue, is closing on them, and they recognize it. And I think really it's more about Brock's timeline fits their timeline more than Trey's timeline fits their timeline. And I think that's why I believe that they are going to move him. I've said that all off season. I'm not rooting for it, but that's my read on it. And I've never backed off of that. I think
your assessment is spot on.
Okay.
I do. I think it's spot on, because here's the deal. John Lynch, one of the best at what he does in football. He's very strategic. He's one of the few guys that actually has taken all the attributes that he had as a player and manifested those as a front office guy. He plays like he GMs. Kyle Shanahan is a very bright guy. Why wouldn't he be? His dad was a brilliant offensive wizardry type of guy. All right. So, but in history, they haven't won a Super Bowl. They haven't won a Super Bowl yet. Kansas City didn't win who's the coach of Kansas City?
Andy Reid.
Andy Reid was great in Philly. Didn't win anything until
500 in the playoffs, basically.
Yes. So, history is going to determine how great Shanahan and Lynch are. And they are aware of history. They want to win a Super Bowl. Okay? Now, last year, Trey Lance and Jalen Hurts were even, comparatively speaking. Nobody thought that Jalen Hurts was going to go on and be the Pro Bowl caliber quarterback that he became, right? The coaching had a lot to do with it. The coach scrapped their offense and said, you know what? I got an idea. I got an idea that's going to work to help this young man become a superstar quarterback. And he put the work in on his own in the offseason with some quarterback guru. And the next thing you know, the NFL is trying to figure out a way to stop Philly's offense. So my thing about Trey Lance is I wouldn't mind him getting traded, because maybe he'll go to a situation that looks at him, his skill set, and develops something for him to be successful. Because he has all of the requisite skills to be a successful player in the NFL. Shanahan seemingly is not the type of guy who is going to alter his attack on offense because he thinks it's great. And it is great. But maybe his inability to say, you know what? How can I change and craft what I do more tailored to this player is limiting Trey Lance? I don't know. But that's just my take on it.
Caesar says the Trey Lance slander's out of hand. Caesar, I get you, man. I do get you because I feel that same frustration. I'm like everybody else. I want to see the Trey idea blossom. I want to see. I know people who have been in Fargo and have been on that campus. I know people who know Trey personally, and there is no better person. There is no better guy, and I want to see him succeed. And I get the frustration. But I don't know if people are slandering him. It's just that I think you're personalizing something that's not personal. And I don't. The Niners love Trey Lance, the guy, and the players love him. The coaches love him. The front office loves him. Everybody loves Trey Lance, the person. I don't think it's about anything other than realistic timelines, and they're making the evaluation that Brock was going to help them win right now. It's not about Brock this versus Trey that. It's really just more about they can't get out of this. They got to compete for a Super Bowl this year. And I think that they feel like Brock gives them the best opportunity. I think they made that evaluation. That's why they went to the combine. And if you go back to that combine comment from John Lynch, he's like, hey, what they asked about Trey Lance, John is a good guy. John's a really good guy and he's honest. And so what'd he say? He said, he went like this. He was like, and he started his comments by saying this, Trey's got to play. Trey's got to play. Mm-hmm. And then the next quote was, and that's the problem.
Right.
And that, if you really think about it, Jimmy was moving on. Brock was hurt. So the fact that Trey Lance needed to play should not have been a problem unless you start to really think it through. And that's what he said. He said, Trey's got to play, and that's the problem. And what did he say next? We got a team that's ready to go right now.
Right.
And the implication was clear that Trey, even though we like him and we believe in him, and we don't believe in him any less today than we did the day we handed in that card and said we're picking him, it's that they need to win now, and needs more development in their professional opinion. And that's what it's not personal. It's not nefarious. Nothing nefarious is going on here. Nobody's evil. You know what I'm saying? And we've got a lot of people pointing fingers and they're evil and they wanted this and they want the best for him. But they prioritized his timeline last year and it didn't work out. They got lucky with Brock Purdy. Let's be honest. And this year, they made a conscious decision that they were going to prioritize their timeline this year. But I think that's really it. That's my read.
There's a lot of questions, right? At least I have, and I'd love if you could answer it as someone who is probably more of an insider than anyone when it comes to the Niners. Is there a date for when Brock Purdy's going to come back? Like, do they actually know when he's going to be ready to go?
No, because it's estimates. I mean, the estimate is that he's ahead of schedule and that Mayoko said that if the timeline that they threw out initially, which was an estimate, if it comes to fruition, if it stays on path, he should be ready to throw or return to practice around August the 21st, which would be about 3 weeks before the week 1 opener.
Okay.
And so he's on track. And they've seen him throw, and they're encouraged, and he is throwing a full-size football. But as far as the concrete, you're not going to get anything more concrete.
Okay, so the Niners are going into the season as Super Bowl contenders. It's a Super Bowl or bust.
Super Bowl favorite out of the NFC. Super Bowl favorite
over Philly. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so
to go to the Super Bowl, the 49ers are the top team in the coming out of the NFC right now in Vegas.
Okay, so here's the next question that I have. So you have to go into the season under the premise we have no idea if Brock Purdy is going to be ready in week 1, let alone we don't know when he's going to play. Is Sam Darnold, in your opinion, starter material? Is he ready to go, and can he lead this team potentially to a Super Bowl this season as a starter?
To me, that's a huge stretch. Huge
Okay.
stretch. But I'll say this, and Mike Martz made the point on the web yesterday.
Mike
that
Martz.
Mike Martz, the former Rams
Yeah,
OC,
yeah.
he said Steve Young, and I have the notes here. I wrote it down. It was
Okay.
really pretty interesting. Mike Martz said that Steve Young, when Steve Young was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was the lowest rated passer in the entire NFL, and he became a Hall of Famer with the 49ers under Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren. Martz went on to say that the 49ers do a better job with the quarterbacks than any team in the NFL today, in his opinion. He says their staff is very good at teaching the quarterback position. And he said that bad teams are just trying to survive, and that Sam Darnold was just thrown on a bad team, was thrown out there, and they had no real plan. They were just trying to survive, and that he thinks the Darnold signing is a terrific signing, and that in San Francisco's support system with their play caller and Kyle and their support system, that he could flourish the way that Steve Young flourished. I'm not as optimistic. I'm not as optimistic as you're saying about a guy that's turned the ball over a ton, that he's somehow going to evolve into a Hall of Famer. I mean, it's a dramatic comp. But I do think if you look at the Sam Darnold turnovers, and there have been many as a pro, a lot of them have been on the Jets, coming from behind in the fourth quarter, trying to make a play, no real structure or talent around him, tons of picks late in games, down. If you're on a 49er team that's leading games, I mean, I think Darnold has an exciting skill set. He throws the ball well, but man, there's an awful lot of turnovers there going back to USC.
Yeah, but that's my thing about him. And he's drafted by the Jets, so I watched him very closely. And I watched him at USC. I think he came out a year too early. With that said, the guy was frightened. He was scared. I mean, quarterbacks are ruined in this league because of horrible organizations. If you know what? If you go from USC, where you literally can take a shower in the pocket and then have lunch, to all of a sudden somebody's lighting you up on every play, and you're not used to that, it changes your dynamic really, really quickly. And I think that's what happened. But his skill set, his talent level, his footwork, his ability to read defenses going from left to right and from right to left is there. His shoulders are square. He holds the ball properly. His feet are firmly cemented on the ground. This guy has some ability. And I'm not surprised that people are talking about how he is learning and he's doing what the 49ers thought that he would do, because they are so keen in terms of how you play quarterback. They wouldn't have reached out for the guy. This is basically a master class for him. He's hoping that he can take this opportunity and set him up for somewhere next year. So I don't know if he can win a Super Bowl, but he definitely could lead the team to the playoffs. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Super Bowl is, that's lofty. All right, let's encourage everybody. Frank's got a brand new YouTube channel. It's called In the Dungeon Show. The THA Dungeon Show. Yeah. It's relatively new. Frank's awesome, as you can tell. I want everybody to go sign up for Frank's YouTube show, like and subscribe over there, and help this man build his show that was once one of the great radio shows in Northern California into the YouTube monster that I know it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And I have total belief in you, Frank, that this thing's going to take off.
I appreciate
How's it going so far? Give us the update so far.
So far, so good. I've been a little under the weather, but but I love it because, first and foremost, Cy and Larry, shout out to everybody who's creating content on a consistent basis. People might think that this is easy and it's a lot of fun, and no. This is hard work. This is very, very hard work. All right.
Yes, it is.
So having an appreciation for this art form, what I do at this point is I go on and I talk by myself for 30 to 45 minutes about sports. I prep for an hour and a half to 2 hours to get 45 minutes in, because I know that ultimately, people will kind of find out about it. But cream rises to the top. There's a lot of average people on YouTube and on the internet. Oh, I got a show. Great. Okay. You want to be good at this? You got to work your ass off. And I have nothing but respect for you gentlemen or anybody else, ladies, Trey, Bays, whomever out there creating content. I got so much respect for you because I know how hard it is, but I love it. I love it, and I'm good at it. I'm prepared, and come check me out, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Seriously, everybody.
Great attitude.
In the Dungeon Show, ENTHA Dungeon Show, starring that guy, Big Frank Red, who's one of our very favorites. And then, of course, Cy. Everybody knows Cy and loves Cy from Locked On Warriors. Locked On Warriors. And Cy, tell people if they want to check out Locked On. And, of course, Cy's a great follow on Twitter. Frank's a great follow on Twitter, at Big Frank Red, at Dog Surf Roadshow for Cy on Twitter. He puts a lot of his information kind of updating you on where you can find his stuff on Twitter. So if you're going to follow Cy on Locked On, definitely follow him on Twitter. But Cy, give us the rundown on the Locked On show. And now that the Warriors are in the offseason, in a lot of ways, I think, you're more necessary or more needed by Warrior fans today than even in season. Give a little plug for Locked On and what you got cooking, because the draft is coming up. By the way, Bill Duffy, who represents 5 or 6 guys, is trying to hook me up with the kid Podzemski, who plays for Santa Clara.
Okay.
Who the Warriors are looking at, point guard, 2 guard, 39-inch vert. He's one of the guys that Duff, reps, and Bill's one of the great agents. And I'm going to talk a lot of NBA draft. I've got a live stream up with Matt Babcock, who was in Chicago at the pre-draft camp. We talked about all these different prospects, and I'll do more of that content between now and draft weekend. I'm a big draft nut. I'll probably have Carl Foster and maybe you guys back on draft night. Love to chop it up with you guys on draft night and talk about all the new players. But so I give people a little plug on Locked On. Tell us where you're at and what kind of content you're producing, out of season now that the playoffs or the finals are almost coming to an end here.
Yeah, well, today's show was awesome just in the sense that I had Kristen Peak on. Again, she's a draft analyst, as close to an expert as you can find when it comes to analyzing draft prospects, providing in-depth information on just who they are as individuals, whether it's as a basketball talent or otherwise. Her mock drafts are incredible. She was one of the very few who back in 2019, I used to book her when I was doing the show with just Rick. And she was advising people back then and advising the Warriors, do not take James Wiseman. She wanted LaMelo Ball, and in hindsight, she was absolutely correct. She's on it constantly. She was the reason why I thought the Warriors last year should have gone with Walker Kessler, who ended up being a first-team All-Rookie player, 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting. She knows her stuff. So I had her on today. We talked about the Warriors draft and the fact that in all likelihood they will not trade the pick, largely because this draft is deep. There's going to be an absence of talent in the next few years, which is kind of crazy. So anyways, Kristen was on the show today. We did a great draft preview show. I also picked her brain on Kuminga and Moody. She scouted these individuals back when they were just in high school, and she provided tremendous insights on that as well. So that was the show today. Howard Beck, the longtime sports journalist, is going to be joining me tomorrow. I'm getting the national perspective on the Bob Myers situation, Joe Lacob, everything we discussed today. I'm going to pick his brain in terms of what he feels about that, because he has a close relationship with Steve Kerr, and he usually provides solid insights. Otherwise, just subscribe to Locked On Warriors. Follow me on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow. And gentlemen, this was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Larry.
Yeah.
Larry, I also want to just kind of like pick your brain for like a minute or so.
Sure.
Your rise has been meteoric. Literally, you've only had like a YouTube show for about a year, and now you're at what? I saw the other day you're like 18,500. Right?
Yeah,
At this
point. We're cruising towards. We're trying. The goal is to get to 20,000 by training camp.
Okay.
Impressive.
We're right now. We're where are we at? We're at 18,677.
Okay. How you doing? Are you okay? Because seemingly you're working a hell of a lot harder now than you did when you were on commercial radio, and you're still filling in there. But I know you're going down to San Jose quite a bit. You're working your tail off, man. How you doing?
Physically, you mean, or just like emotionally,
I
mentally?
mean, everything, because this is hard.
All of the above.
I mean, you having all this success. I just want to make sure that I'm asking you because how you
yeah,
doing?
I mean, it's my life project.
Okay.
I mean, it's seriously my life project. In some ways, it's very, very difficult. And I'm a big fan of everybody who tries to do this. Like 1% of all YouTube channels make it to 10,000 subs.
Wow.
Something like
I
that.
didn't know that.
It's really low. It's a lot of work. I can't do it all myself. My son, who goes to Cal Poly, is helping us out, making videos, chopping things up.
Excellent, by the way. Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a labor of love. I mean, the one thing is, I did the radio show the last few years, and I lost control of the editorial content of the show. I never got a chance to really have people on the radio at KMBR in the last edition of my show that I wanted to have on. Right. And it was other people's guests, other people's ideas, other people's game plan. And as somebody who did my own show at night, and Cy was one of my producers, I really think that I know what good content is. And I wish a few more people would have asked me what I thought was going to be good content. Yeah. And then I think we would have had greater success collectively on the radio. But I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just loving that I'm getting a chance to jump out of radio, which is my favorite medium and was my dream, and jump into a transitioning world where YouTube is growing at a ridiculous rate, and there's more people on YouTube than ever before. So I'm loving it. I control the content. I control the guests. When I call to say, hey, Frank, will you come on? Or Cy, will you come on? It's partly because we're friends, but it's also selfishly because I know you're both damn good.
Right.
And Trent Baalke, of course, immediately I've got this. Larry's ripping Tom Tolbert. I'm not sure. It's not true at all. I love Tom Tolbert. I'm ripping the idea of the producers having total say. And, like when I did my nighttime show at KMBR, I booked it. Mm-hmm. I booked that show. And when I did the show with Gary, I booked that show. And I didn't book the show in the afternoon drive. And I personally think that I know what the audience wants. I am a native San Franciscan. I've lived here my whole life. Mm-hmm. I'm talking to Bay Area sports fans. I know what Bay Area sports fans want to hear. And so I wanted to have more of a say on the actual, who are we talking to? What are we talking about? Are we talking hockey? Are we talking football? And football is my passion, and football is the most popular sport in America. But I also love to talk baseball. Like tomorrow, for example, the Giants are going to play a day game, right? And when that day game's over, Ned Colletti, Marty Lurie, Dan Cochimilio, three of the very best baseball guests I think there are going to join me in the post game, and we're going to talk about the Giants tomorrow after the Giants-Rockies day game. I'll put that up there against anything that's on any radio station, anywhere. I think that post game is going to be really good. When we do these Niner post game shows, some of the content that we have there is spectacular. It's also helped me get from the radio of kind of old school thinking to a little bit more like when you're getting compensated based on what kind of traction there is, then you're going to really start to play the hits more than just like, hey, I'm doing what I like to do. So I love what we're doing. I love the content. One of the things I did yesterday, I was down in Santa Clara. I'm at a press conference, and we're talking to George Kittle, Nick Bosa, other guys too. But those were, was Kyle Shanahan. Today was Demo Lenore, Steve Wilkes, Javon Hargrave. And what I've loved is, in this press conference setting, there's 40 people, 50 people in the room, and you got the presser up there. Well, now because of the phone, I can record it, and then I can kind of zoom in through my son kind of edits it into a Instagram reel. And so then I can ask a question to like George Kittle, and then he can give me an answer, and it's literally like every other person in the room is gone. And then I can now take that off Instagram and tweet that out to my whatever 35,000 Twitter followers. And now I'm delivering directly to Niner fans my question and their answer in kind of a snackable content form. And I love it. I love it. And I'll be doing stuff with the Niners this year again. I love, all those years I did pregame on the radio, I never really had the chance to go down to Santa Clara, on a regular basis, talk to the players, go into the locker room and talk football with them. And now I have that opportunity. And after doing that last year, I realized how much I enjoyed that. Today at practice, I'm on the sideline and there's Drake Jackson from USC. And, he comes over, hey, what's up, Krug? And we shake hands out there. And it's like, I feel like I've got a good relationship with him where I can go into the locker room after a practice or a game and just talk shop and then bring that directly to the audience. And like in the NBA, that access is really limited sometimes, but in football, they still give you that access. And so I love that. And now football fans are getting to see me interview the players and getting that right, direct. And I love it. So I will say this, it's a lot of work and it takes a skill set to run these channels that's greater than what I have. Like I can talk and I know sports, but I can't technically do everything. So I had to have somebody technically help me set up my studio, understand how to edit everything. So it's been an education, and it's really difficult for one person to do it. Today I picked up two additional new sponsors. Marin Auto Glass, which was at KMBR for years, is joining me. We're going to have more new sponsors coming up, but it's everything. It's like you're the sales department, you're the IT department, you're the host, you're the booking producer, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of jobs. And my wife sometimes jokes with me. It's like, hey, you work your ass off. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, because I really know the way I want it to look and sound, and I know what kind of content I want. So, I'm down in Santa Clara. I'm booking guests. I'm talking to players. I'm booking guests for next week. I'm sending out texts to potential sponsors. I'm thinking of ways to grow the channel. It's just, it's laborious, and but it's a labor of love. It's my life project. We're on target to have 20,000 subs by camp. We're on target to have close to 50,000 subs by the end of the year. And, in some ways it's the greatest thing. And also having my son work with me, who's my oldest son, Kevin, it's like, he's got a skill set. He's way more technical, and he's 22. Right. So he's a perfect beta tester for the YouTube audience, which is right around 22. So it's like, I trust in him. If he says, hey, your audience is going to like this, Dad. And then I'm like, you're right. And then I start to so being able to work hand in hand with my oldest son is just so unbelievably gratifying.
That's awesome,
man. This guy here, Ale Jam, says, Larry, when do you usually take your vacation? I ain't taking a vacation until I have this thing cooking and I'm making quite a bit more than I ever made on the radio. So wow. I do plan on taking a vacation, but it's probably not going to be for another year. And I'm a grinder, man. I love talking sports. I love chopping it up. And I also love, making stars. Like I'm a scout, right? So I know personnel, and it's like the same way I knew that, Brock Purdy was a damn good quarterback real early on. I know that you're a star, Frank, and I know that you're a star, Cy, and I ain't blowing smoke up your butt. I'm telling you the truth. And I know that Carl's a star, and I know that Vish, who I have on my show, is a star, and I know that Damon in this format's going to be a star. And so I can just go out there, and of all the people I know, I can say, there's a star, there's a star, there's a star, and bring them into my fold, boost their star. And to me, where I'm really going to be loving this, man, is 5 years from now when I can go, Cy's making cash, Frank's making cash, everybody's doing what they love to do. I had a hand in their growth. They had a hand in my growth. And I love seeing, I think I know talent, and you guys are talented. And so in a lot of ways, it's like this is like the ultimate career job for me because it's media and sports and Bay Area and talking to people. And I want to do more shows this year where I take like video calls because that's my favorite thing is to talk to the fans directly. But yeah, I'm invested in your guys' success. You know, because I mean, you guys have had a huge hand. I mean, we had a great run throughout the playoffs talking about, you know, I thought the post-game show we did during the playoffs all the way through this year and last year was some of the best content the Bay Area had to offer. Dude, I was at Chick-fil-A today and I in Santa Clara and I ordered a spicy chicken sandwich and a medium Coke. And I got up to the front and the guy's like, before I even said anything, he goes, "I love your show, man." And I'm like, how did you even know? I'm sitting in my car and he's like, I recognize your voice when you said I want a spicy chicken sandwich. And then he starts quoting our basketball playoff shows and talking about you guys and the roundtables. And man, I thought you were just a football guy. And then I saw your basketball stuff and man, you're good at that. And your guys' roundtables were so awesome. And this is just a guy. He's literally just seeing me. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking the growth potential of YouTube and all of our growth potential on YouTube is just so astronomical. I mean, I'm in Santa Clara today, for Niners practice, and they have officials like, not former NFL officials, but local high school and college officials. And one of the officials in the middle of practice where all the media are standing there, and he flips around, he turns around and looks at me, and then he does a double take. And then, like, when there was an incomplete pass, he comes over and shakes my hand. He's like, "I just wanted to say I love the show." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Oh, you talking about KMBR or my 95.7 the show?" And I fill in. He's like, "No, man, the Krueger show." Right. Dude, it's unbelievable.
That's big time, man.
It's unbelievable.
It is big time.
It's unbelievable. And you're and Frank, both you guys have huge growth potential. And anything you want from me to help you grow your channel, you don't even have to ask. I'm there for you. So, and my friends, the one thing Cy and Red, you guys both know, if you're my friend for life. So I'll help you guys until I'm 6 feet under, growing your stuff and building your channel and, onward and upward. And to me, it's going to be great. 5 years from now, we have a big old party in Maui, and we're toasting, cocktails to Cy's success and your success, Red, and the success. Or
even if it's at what's your title sponsor? Pig in a Pickle.
Pig in a Pickle.
Even
love
if it's
Damon
just there,
Stainbrook, the owner of Pig in a Pickle. I mean,
just go there. That's cool.
The fact that he's like, the fact of the matter is, he's like, dude, I check in on your show. I'm running my own business, but I love your content and I believe in you. And I Marin Autoglass, Saeed, the guy who owns Marin Autoglass, contacted him today. He's like, you know what? This is what I can do, but man, I'm thrilled to be associated with you. And I'm like, dude. So it's little bits of successes every day that make this what it is. But it is a lot of work, but it's also it's very gratifying. It's very gratifying. More gratifying than anything I've ever done.
That's great to hear. And aside, sometimes like I'll say, you'll be kind of like self-deprecating. Now, dude, you got a big following, a crazy following.
Thanks, man. I thank you. I never think or feel like I'm anything special, but thank you. We're just trying to grow this thing.
But what's really cool is, I mean, you have a point of view and you build your thesis and you stick to it. And that's really what it's all about, because there's so many people out there that's like either yay or nay, but that's what this is all about. Larry made a point about, quote, playing the hits and having to do things that you don't necessarily feel comfortable with. I mean, that's the only thing I know about radio. I mean, Mike Ramey, the guy who hired me at Sports 1140, I don't know if he thought he was doing charity work at the beginning or whatever, but I did exactly what I wanted to do. And that's all I ever wanted to do in radio. And now with this YouTube situation, I can do what I want to do. Now, like Larry said, nobody's on the Krueger show who's not good. Right. Why would you have somebody on your show who is not good? It's about the content and it's about the delivery. It's all of that. So, I mean, we had 4 guys on tonight. Everybody's good. but yet nobody's in awe of the next person. I mean, we throwing out different takes that are totally different from the next guy, and we're like, oh, I didn't think about that. You know what I'm saying? So it's competition, but it's fun because we all know our stuff. And that's really what it's all about. That's what
I don't think we'd be here if it wasn't fun. And Frank, man, I will message you soon to invite you on Locked On. And anytime you want me on the dungeon, brother, I'm coming.
I'll definitely get you on. I got to get the reps up first. But yeah, no, seriously, I don't want to waste somebody like you who got
you wouldn't.
No, but I got folks I want to get on, but I definitely want to have you on. But
say when.
It's important that you, as a content, meaning me and anybody else who's a content creator, serve your listeners.
Yeah.
Show them that you're not full of you know what. Because like Larry said, 99% of this crap is crap. You know what I'm saying? You need to give people a reason to make sure that they tune in. Otherwise, why would they tune in? It doesn't make any sense. There's a few shows that I watch, I listen to. I want to be one of those guys. I want to be one of those people that, you know what? I don't agree with Red, but damn, he knows what he's talking about. He's done the research. That's why I like this show, because we are serious about this stuff. So,
and Larry, and both of you, and Larry is right on, man. I don't think anyone can achieve success in this business if you're not busting your ass, man. It does take hard work.
Hard work is the constant variable in success in life, right? It doesn't matter what you do or when you do it. Hard work is going to be part of it, or you won't have success.
Yeah.
But you guys have huge talent, and I have a Rolodex full of, and Rolodex, by the way, young kids. But I have a list of people's contacts that and I've never forgotten who's good. It's like, part of me like, I thought maybe I would want to be like a program director, for like a radio station, because I really know that I could put together a great lineup and great guests and produce great content. But that's what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. I'm just doing it for my own channel. And also we're in the new medium where the visual medium, the one thing that people don't want anymore is they don't want yes men, people that have no true opinion because their corporate overlords are such a hindrance that you're never getting a real message. They want a true independent message. What I love the most is when Cy comes on and he just gives opinions and people are like, F Cy. I can't stand Cy. And then maybe Frank, you come in with a comment and there's people like, you know what? I totally love Frank and this, and they're passionate about your guys' opinions because why? Because you're authentic. Mm-hmm. It's authenticity is what this world is lacking. And as when you get all these people that pay your salary and then all of a sudden, well, I don't want to rip this guy because we're the flagship over there. And I don't want to rip that guy because, he might not say that. It's like you have a layer of independence here where, my whole thing is this too. And Frank, it, and Cy, it from being on the radio. Anybody can step in and do one great radio show, one show.
Yep.
But it's hard to do a platform where today's a show, tomorrow's a show, and you don't want to compromise yourself, say anything you don't actually believe in, repeat yourself to death, or, be anything but totally authentic. And that's what I love about guys like yourselves. And that's why really at the core, we're friends, but at the core is what you guys do is authentic. And I don't care, I never liked TV because you stumble 3 words. It's like, oh, you had a rough show. It's like, who cares? People flub words all the time. Give me authenticity. And I've had people sit there and say, dude, I love your show. And I'll be like, yeah, it's kind of late, huh? And like most of my buddies on the East Coast, and they'll be like, no, dude, I actually, I listen to it in the morning, every morning, the next morning, so it's not about, the time. So it hits me that, what? That's the beauty of this is like, even my late father, he stopped listening to the radio show at the time it was on. He started listening to the podcast because we're all in a world where we want it when we want it and when we can digest it. It's more about the user, and YouTube's more user friendly than just like catch it when you can at a set schedule. So anyway, I'm blabbering. Hey, thanks for tonight, and we'll do this again shortly in the coming weeks. We'll definitely do this regularly. Draft is coming up in about 3 weeks. I'd love to have you on then for sure, but maybe we can do another post game after one of these finals games. So,
all right, look forward to it. Take care,
Frank,
gentlemen.
I'll let you go. Have a great night. There you go. The great Frank Reds.
I was going to give the people what they wanted. I keep reading light one up, and I'm like, all right, fine. It's
fire one up, Cy. What the heck? Fire one up. While Cy's firing one up, let me pay the bills, and then I'll come back. I've got some super chat. I get some chats I want to read here. Some starred chats that I want to read here coming up next. But we'll finish with the starred chats. But first, we get a word from our sponsors, and we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle.
A Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, coming down the home stretch on the Krueger Show, 2 hours and 47 minutes into the show.
All right.
All right, tomorrow on the show, on the channel, we got a lot going on. We're going to have a bunch of videos. I've got a bunch of things coming out tomorrow. Look for that on the video page. My son's doing a bang-up job. Tomorrow, the Giants, by the way, the Giants got a 5-4 win against the Rockies tonight. How about that? Giants playing great ball. Well, the Giants are playing good ball. They're 31-30. They're basically 500.
Oh, wow.
Game under on the road, game over at home, or 2 games over at home. But the Giants tonight were down 4-0 going to the 7th. And they scored 3 in the 7th, 2 in the 8th, and they win 5-4.
They're above 500?
They're 31-30.
Jesus
31-30.
Christ.
Yeah, they're playing well. They're playing well. They started Logan Webb. He went 5 1/3, gave up 4 Ernies. Then they went to Tristan Beck, then the Rogers brothers, and they finished with Doval, who gets save number 15. How about Camilo? 2.03 ERA.
They're doing it with pitching.
They're doing it. Well, they're doing it. Yeah, a little bit of everything. They started to really swing it since they called up some of the young kids. In the 7th, Slater had an RBI single to score Conforto, and then Casey Schmidt, the rookie, who I said should have broke camp with him out of spring, had a 2-run single to left, and that made it 4-3. And then the Giants won it basically in the top of the 8th inning. Slater with an RBI single scored Jock Peterson to tie the game. And then Patrick Bailey with the sacrifice scored Haniger to give the Giants a 5-4 lead, and they hold on. How about that? And game 3 tomorrow, Giants going for the sweep. Giants won game 1, 10-4. They won game 2 tonight, 5-4. And they play tomorrow. And as I said, tomorrow after the day game, it's a 12:30 game, something like that. So right around 3 o'clock, let's say 2:30, 3 o'clock. Marty Lurie's going to be with us, and Ned Coletti, and the great Dan Cochimilio. So Danny's got the NorCal Sports Network. I think Danny might have gone on opposite us tonight. But tomorrow afternoon, late afternoon, watch for Ned Coletti, Marty Lurie, and Danny and I after the Giants and the Rockies, and we'll look ahead to the trade deadline and talk a little bit about the resurgence of the San Francisco Giants. Also, tomorrow at noon, catch me on 95.7 The Game with Guru and Steinmetz talking about Niner training camp or mini camp, I should say. I'll do a little guest hit with the boys tomorrow at 95.7 at noon.
Nice.
Then Vish Kumaran's going to join me tomorrow night. And it's going to be a show that's on both of our channels. And then Jesse Naylor is going to join us as well. So it'll be Jesse right around 5 o'clock Pacific, and then Vish right around 6:45 Pacific. Both of them on the Krug Show. Friday is going to be fun as well. At 11 a.m. in the morning, Jack Hammer from the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, who has his own YouTube channel, he's going to stop by at 11 o'clock. We'll talk about minicamp and all the latest 49er headlines. And then catch me with Dan Dibley from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. on 95.7 The Game. I'll drive into San Francisco, and me and Dibbs, who I saw today in Santa Clara, talking Niners and Warriors and Giants and everything else on the game. So catch me Friday on the game, an afternoon drive from 2 to 6 p.m. Next week on the show, we're chasing down interviews with Dave Lombardi, who's going to join us, Grant Cohn, Kurt Warner, Mike Silver, Guy Haberman, John Middlecoff. We got a lot cooking, not to mention Vish and Jesse Naylor and Jack Hammer and all the good people that we do stuff with. We're also going to try to get Jordan Elliott on and Kyle Posey, both of Niners Nation fame. So good stuff. Good stuff. Ashley says,
that's all you have going on?
Yeah, that's it. Ashley Keating says, no show with Vish this week, Larry. No, Vish has got a new deal with Bleacher Report, and Vish was going to be on tonight. But then I told him, I said, hey, Vish, do you realize tonight's the NBA Finals? So we canceled our show that we were going to do tonight, and we'll do it tomorrow night. So catch me tomorrow night with Vish on both of our channels simultaneously at 6:45. 6:45, me and Vish tomorrow. Jesse Naylor at 5, and then Vish and I at 6:45 tomorrow. All right, let's hit some of these starred chats here.
Yeah, how are you feeling about the Niners, man? You're my go-to for information, and
they're deep. They're deep, and they got they're really deep. I mean, they're it's funny. ESPN Mike Clay did this breakdown of Niners, and Seahawks, and he thinks that the Seahawks are the better team.
What?
I know. I don't get that. The Niners beat the Seahawks 3 times last year. The only area the Seahawks are even possibly better than Niners would be the secondary and the special teams. The rest of it, it's advantage 49ers. We got this one.
So let me ask
the Niners, I think, are going to win, I would say, 12 games. I think it's 12.
But this QB situation, and Ashley, it just seems weird to me in the sense that, like, why are they giving up so fast on Trey Lance? Like, do they just not like him? They don't like what they see? Is he cost too much? Like, why are they just so insistent on trading him and moving on?
I don't know that they're insistent on it. I just think that as we get closer to his 5th-year option, he becomes more expensive. And they also kind of know that they don't want to keep his career hostage. They don't want to hold him hostage. I mean, they want to give him an opportunity to develop. I mean, deep down, I think they really like him. So, I know it plays like, you only trade people you don't like, but in this situation, I think they're going to trade him because they like him. And they don't want him to waste away on the bench. He doesn't want to be traded. He's made that perfectly clear, but they want to commit to Brock Purdy. And this is where, this is what I was talking about all offseason, why I took a ton of criticism from people, is that I said this early in the offseason. The Niners love Trey Lance, but they're going to commit to Brock Purdy and move off of Trey Lance. That's my read on the situation. That's been my read on the situation. And now it's just a matter of when. So now they could hold on to him as insurance, but it's like, do you want to be insured? Does he, I don't know that he's like Trey Lance is an interesting prospect, but is he the ideal number 2 quarterback to sit the bench and then be the backup, or does he need to play and develop? And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll keep him and develop him on the on the bench, and whenever somebody gets hurt, they'll throw him in there. But they're going to have to make a decision a year from now on whether or not to pay him some significant money. And right now, I still think there's probably some value there. I think there's probably teams like Atlanta, Washington, the Raiders, a couple others that I could think of that would probably, Minnesota, his home state, his hometown team, Green Bay. I mean, there's some teams out there that I think, would give you something significant. I wouldn't trade him myself unless I got something significant, because I think he's going to be good. Well, but I think it's going to take some time. My whole take on it was he's going to be good. It just may not be on their timeline. It's going to be on his timeline. And you can't speed that up. And so, somebody says the Commanders or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know, but I mean, let's just say this. The 49ers are one more edge rusher away from being a dominant Super Bowl type team.
Right.
And the Commanders have Montez Sweat. They also have Chase Young. And they're talking about maybe moving those guys or moving one of them. And if somehow you could get an impact edge rusher, put him opposite Nick Bosa, you get a Montez Sweat, you give Montez Sweat to the 49ers. I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFL, or definitely in the NFC. And I think they're a Super Bowl team. So I don't know what they're going to be able to get for him. But like if it's a conditional 5th, that could be a 4th, there's no way I'm moving him. But if I could get a significant player like a Montez Sweat or a Chase Young and a conditional pick, I got to really think about it. Both, in my interest and in his interest. A Data 84 says Montez Sweat runs sub 4.5 40. I mean, he's been a very consistent defensive end. If the Commander said we'll give you Montez Sweat and a day 3 pick, I would do it.
Here's the part that doesn't make sense to me, and this is where I'd love for you or someone else to make this understandable or clear. Brock Purdy suffered an injury that is very unusual, right? I mean, that's not something we see every day. Didn't Brock Purdy himself say that he might not even play this year? He just doesn't want to be tied to anybody's timeline. So he's just saying that. But I think people ran with that. All indications are that he's rehabbing and doing well. Okay, so you feel good about it. And I guess here's the other thing is like, why are we so...
That's part of the reason why he probably hasn't been moved yet, is that they wanted to get that definitive answer. If Brock had come out of rehab and he had huge pain in the elbow every time he threw, and he didn't look like the same guy, I don't think there's any chance they would even consider it. Okay, I think the only way they would consider it is if they feel that Brock is going to... I mean, they think that Brock... I mean, they put it out there earlier this year, and I agree with them. Brock's not just a good player. Brock's a special player.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people don't believe that. I do believe that. And if you're one of those people that doesn't think that Brock Purdy's special, I get it that you don't want to move Trey Lance, because Trey Lance represents, major upside. But it's also about timeline. I think it's more about timeline than anything else. That's my feel. Let me hit these starred chats and we'll bolt for the door.
I love
Ernie,
I love the way you feel about Brock Purdy though, because he has a 5-game sample size, right? If I'm not mistaken,
closer to 10.
Okay.
He went 6-0 in the regular season, if you count the Tampa game, which he came in the first quarter. They were down in that game. They wound up winning that game. So technically, he went 6-0. And then he went 2-0, and then he got knocked out of the Philly game. So he really went 8-0, and then in the 9th start got knocked out.
Right. Okay. All right. You sold me. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
Ernie Chavez says, Krug had some New York style Italian sausage with my spaghetti last night.
Do they deliver?
No, they don't.
Okay.
But but it's a great product. New York style sausage. It's like if you try it once, you'll be a fan for life.
That sounds like just the idea right now of just throwing some pasta in a pot and having that sausage. I'm hungry, man. What do you want from me?
Well, you know what I did the other night? I got the New York style Italian sausage bratwursts, and I put them on the grill, and we had bratwurst. Oh my god, the bratwurst was incredible.
I'm all in. Yeah, I'm fucking
absolutely incredible.
Right
Nick Jason's thoughts.
Supreme was right in the chat. That didn't equal 10. You said 10-0, or you said 10, and then it was 6-2-1. So
no, he's basically 8-0.
Okay,
and then you could say 8-1. So it's closer to. You said 5-0. I said it's closer to 10. So meaning he had 9 starts. In my mind, he had 9 starts, and he didn't give. Let's just say this too. Brock Purdy's never lost a game that he started and finished in the NFL.
That's impressive.
Hasn't lost.
I'm all in, man. I'm sold.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy all the way. Let's do it.
Trent Balky says, I cook some New York Italian sausages, Larry, on my Traeger.
My Traeger.
I did it on my Traeger.
So random.
That's a barbecue. We got this one from a data. It says, Larry, any chance the Niners pick up Justin Houston on a veteran minimum for extra pass rush? I would say they're an edge rusher, one more edge rusher away from being, a very dominating defensive front. I mean, Hargrave, Bosa, Armstead, Drake Jackson, that's pretty scary. But if you added one more edge and you could play Drake, you could slow play Drake and play him as your third guy, man, I don't see anybody competing with them. Nick J says, thoughts on Kerr going on Draymond's pod and essentially calling out Kuminga and Poole without naming names. I'm sure he and the new GM have an agreement to trade those guys. We already hit that. That's for sure. We got this one from Hendricks. He says, same shit Greg Papa did to Trey Lance today, talking about, his talking about Brandon Allen.
That guy, is he any good? Brandon Allen? I know nothing.
He's actually pretty good. He was, he's not bad. He's not bad. Right. I would not be surprised if Brandon Allen was better than Sam Darnold. Not be surprised at all. They're very comparable in my opinion. I mean, Darnold's bigger with a better arm, but Brandon Allen's got some movement ability. He's got some guile. He's got some moxie. There's a lot to like.
I'm sold on the trading Trey idea if you keep Darnold. This unknown makes me not quite as
well. Yeah, you got to keep. I mean, you got to make sure that you have enough quarterbacks to get through the year. Because man, you trade Darnold, Trey Lance and you wind up with a no quarterback situation. That could be bad. Polyester says, Larry itching to talk football. We did. We talked a little football there.
Yeah.
Rip Krueger Rebel says Joe was pissed they moved James Wiseman. Talking about Joe Lacob.
Yeah.
Nick Jace is looking at how the season ended. I would have rather kept Sadiq Bey than get an injured GP2 back. What do you think of that?
Yeah, we touched on that too. Yeah.
Will Martinez, the Giants are heating up. Matos is coming, and Wisenhunt is killing it in Double-A. Hum baby. Giants have a lefty named Carson Wisenhunt, and his changeup is so dirty, and that it's like his motion is exactly the same. It's awesome.
Is that Ken's kid?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But this guy might be the best young pitcher the Giants have developed since Bumgarner. I mean, Wisenhunt looks really good. That's really good.
All right.
Trent Balky says, heard a rumor that Farhan is shopping Luis Matos and Vaughn Brown for Lucas Giolito, Larry. What are you hearing? I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it, Trent. Wouldn't do it.
You got to give it a Farlon though, man. They're above 500. I feel like most people were writing them off, and for them to be in contention right now,
I was one of them.
Yeah,
Will Martinez, damn it, Larry. When are you going to break down Wisenhunt's AA debut? And the Giants are turning in the right direction with the young homegrown players. Well, we'll be talking about it tomorrow. Me and Danny and Marty and Ned. We got this one from Trent Baalke. Sigh ripping NorCal Sports Network. What a joke. Get a life, buddy.
I didn't even rip him either, so I don't know.
We're just having fun. Everybody's always looking.
I threw a little subtle shade, but
come on, it's jocular.
Whatever.
It's a little jocularity.
Yeah,
Car gods, Larry, you were right all along. Trey Lance is getting traded. It all makes sense now. Guess Sims, Papa, and all makes sense. It all makes sense.
It all makes sense now. It just constantly makes sense.
Yep. Trock, any news on Tyron Davis-Price? Ty Davis-Price, haven't heard about him, positive or negative. Saw him today on the field. He looks quick, and he's 220 pounds. I like him a lot. Niners are stacked at running back. McCaffrey looks monster. Ty Davis-Price looks monster. J.P. Mason looks monster. The only guy that doesn't look good right now is Elijah Mitchell, who's hurt and for whatever reason not on the field. L. Fox says Trey will be a Washington Commander. We were talking about how the Warriors, went with Alan Smiley-Geach. I think that got this comment from Kevin F. Justinian Jessup is their shooter.
Well, I think the Warriors still own his rights too for like another year or so. Which is
he's still playing.
Yeah, he's in Australia. He's not good.
Just another one of these. Don't fall in love. Don't draft guys on shooting percentages. Do not do that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the one thing. I kind of feel like, some of these young Lake Up kids are, we're going to find the guy that nobody knows about. Okay. You get a little too deep in the weeds and you're going to make huge mistakes. Smiley-Geach and Jessup.
Right. Well, for the second rounders, agreed. But for the first rounders, it's a very simple formula they use. And it's also been somewhat effective, which is it's all about the high school track record for them. It's all about how they played coming out of high school, because you have these such late first round picks that's their gamble. It's like, all right, if we're gonna gamble this late, we're gonna go with someone who, regardless of how they did in college, if they came out of high school as a really high prospect, that's who we're going to target. Like Nico Mannion was an example. Jordan Poole was really highly rated. So is Moody and Kuminga. But then you look at these late picks, like Patrick Baldwin Jr. had an awful freshman year in college, but he came out of high school as a top-rated prospect. I think he got invited to play for Duke or North Carolina, or maybe both. I can't remember. But so that's been their formula, and it worked with Kevon Looney. Kevon Looney was like a top-rated high school player, dropped a little bit after his freshman year at UCLA. It's a simple yet pretty effective formula, but Smiley did not fit that as far as I know. I don't know for sure, but
Joe should consult me because he should call me because I'm the guy also who said that Damian Lillard had game.
Ooh,
I don't know everything, but I know players. Trent Baalke, Jake Moody hit a 63-yard field goal today, Lowry.
Is that true?
I don't know if it was a 63-yarder. I thought it was closer to 60, but the guy's got a booming leg. There's no doubt.
So no regrets for the high pick for a kicker.
No. It wasn't even that high of a pick, really. It was a compensatory pick at the end of the third round, maybe a half round early. Not a big deal. Mark Lopez says, Larry, I understand the hesitancy on Darnold, but I think he will surprise you if given the opportunity. I think first year Matt Ryan. Understand, Kyle. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay. Yeah,
is Matt Ryan was still playing. Is he done? What's
no? He retired this year. Or he's maybe still waiting by the phone. Tom Pierce says, "Star me up, Larry. Star me up." There you go, Tom. You were starred.
Tom
Walter Washington. Thank you, Larry and Cy. There you go.
seem like a good person, Walter.
Trent Baalke. Glenn Kuiper got screwed.
That's crazy. It is crazy what happened there, man. That's
just
right.
Wrong. Just wrong. If I thought Glenn Kuiper said that out of malice, I'd be the very first one to say, get him out of here.
Same.
But we're in this weirdo world right now that it's just I understand it, but I didn't like it. It's just a weird world that we're in.
The part that maybe would make sense is if we knew what happened behind the scenes, because supposedly I read or heard, I can't remember, that in the investigative part of it, something got revealed that's still weird. Just the whole thing.
I know, but we're in this weird world where, we're at practice today listening to a bunch of rap songs and there's N-bombs getting dropped left and right. People are having idle conversations. Nobody thinks anything of it. This guy clearly made a speaking error. He's got a track record of decades, and he's got to go. But we're totally accepting, but we're not accepting. The whole thing is just
he just screwed up, But
I'll just say this: I know Glenn. And Glenn is not the hateful racist that so many people have claimed that he is. He's a sweetheart of a human being. Yeah. He's a very, very nice man. And he meant nothing of that. But I do understand where we're at. And he should have corrected himself. And I don't know how it appeared, how he ever did it twice. I mean, it's just.
He did it twice?
I guess, but I mean, it's
okay. Then I need to.
Yeah, I know. Okay. The whole thing is, I've said what I needed to say about it.
All right, yeah, there we go.
I feel bad, but at the same time,
exactly.
I do understand this. I do understand that there has to be a zero tolerance policy. Yeah. I really do understand that, and we all do. So it's
like I say, him way more than me, but you and I both for years interacted with him. I mean, and
sweet,
I had the same
nice
impression.
person.
I mean.
Oh
yeah,
I never had a hateful bone in his body. He's a really, really nice man. Positive Panda Frisco drummer. Trying to consistently have content without repeating yourself all the time is tough. Yeah, there's no question about that. Jeff says Braden Willis will be a great blocker as a tight end for the Niners. I agree. I think I'll make a bold prediction. Braden Willis will be the Niners' second tight end this year.
Ooh,
that's my thought on that. Waveware says, I wouldn't tune into Larry's channel if he lied to us.
You're credible, sir.
There you go. A Data 84, Larry's roundtables are the best. Definitely not lazy.
Until I smoke.
Yes.
I'm done right
now. We got a couple more. A Data 84, Munchies hitting Psy.
I want some of that sausage, man. I want some of that New York style.
Bebop Jones. Sunday dinner without sausage is like church without God. Classic line.
It's incredible.
Car God says, hard to move away from a quarterback that protects the ball and puts up 30-plus points per game. He's talking about Brock Purdy, of course.
I'm all in.
Car God says, some have Brandon Allen already beating Trey.
But Darnold is the one. I don't want Darnold to go. I like Sam Darnold. He's still young, right? I mean, isn't he still in his mid-20s or
25?
Yeah, so yeah, he needs to be a part of this if they're going to trade Trey, in my humble opinion.
We got this one from Terradome. What's up, Terradome? Good to hear you. He says, Brandon Allen is low-key challenging for a spot. Okay. Terradome says, Krug, there's a rumor out there that Trey may have asked for a trade. What do you think? That's interesting. If he privately asked for a trade, I'll say this publicly, he's been asked, would you consider asking for a trade? No, I want to be here. I want to be here. I want to be here. So I'll say this, he's not the kind of person that would say, get me out of here. But if they don't, but he also has maintained, all I want is an opportunity to compete.
Yeah.
So if they're really going to hand the job back to Brock Purdy, and I think they are, maybe then he does want to be somewhere else. I don't know.
You know what's crazy, Larry, is the Niners have such an opposite QB dilemma that nearly every other team has. I mean, there's so many teams that need a quarterback. It shocks me that the Niners are having difficulties trading these pieces. It's bizarre to me. I don't. The one thing is that we don't know what they want, right? So it's like they may be able to trade him, 6 months ago if they were willing to take a 5th round pick, but if they're holding out for like Montez Sweat and a 3rd or something like that, then maybe and maybe it's just about timing. I think it's not really about they're not getting offers. I think it's more about they don't want to move off of Trey until they get a real solid feel that Brock is going to return healthy.
So I think it's more about, I think everything, whether it be this trade or just the fact that they're going with Brock, I think it's all the same thing. It's about the Niners are now about their timeline, and that's going to take priority over everything else. And in reality, that's probably the way it should be, right? I mean, it's, you know, it's okay to it's okay to take your own timeline or prioritize it. A Data 84, Larry's bulky impression is second only to his Ralph impression.
Krug, you know, it's so funny. You're so cute, Krug. You get so angry at the Giants, and you're always mad at Dusty and Sonny Jackson. And, I love Sports Phone. I'll be driving home, and I say to Tate, Tate, I love Sports Phone, and Cyrus is producing, and it's just, Tom and I do our face off with Krug, and then he does his show, and I get in the Miata, and I'm driving down Lombard, and I'm listening, and I think to myself, I wish I had an Amici's, and and then I think, where are my garlic fries? And
I can't believe we are RIPing that guy, man. It's been like a couple years now, too, right? Like
for Ralph,
crazy, yeah.
Love Ralph.
He was in it for. I mean, you followed him. You had face-offs 5 days a week with him, and I produced his show for.
We had children that my oldest daughter and his son were born like 15 days apart.
Wow.
So like in 2000, I mean, me and my wife were like giving him advice on like play groups and because he was like a single dad, right? And he didn't know. He was older, and he didn't know about kids, and we didn't know. We were all kind of learning together. It was. I'll never forget, though, when I told him I was going to Disneyland and he had just gone.
He's like, "Oh, Krug, I'll leave you a message on the machine about Disneyland. You got to listen to me. You got to listen. You got to take my advice. I got that whole park figured out. I know how to navigate it. I can tell you. I can share it with you."
And I'm like, "Ralph, great. Yeah, leave me a voicemail." And so he's like, "Give me your number." And I'm like, 995-6855. And he's like, "That's your work number." I go, "I don't want you calling me at home." I check my voicemail, and it always would be like, "You have no messages," or like, So one day I check it, and it goes, "You have 7 messages." I'm like, 7 messages, and like first one was like, "Hey, blankety blank, I'd like to do a fantasy football show on your Sports Phone 680." So I hit erase. And then the next one,
"Hey, Craig, it's Ralph, and I just wanted to say, make sure you go to Toontown, and definitely you're gonna have to go to Snoopy's Kitchen in downtown Disney, and they have a great breakfast, and it's a buffet. It's a little pricey, but the characters are all there, and you."
Oh my God! And then all of a sudden you hear this beep.
"Oh, sorry, Krug. Yeah, it's Ralph again. I got cut off. I'll say this, when you're in Never Neverland, you got to make sure you get the Disney princesses to sign. They only sign every half hour. And then, some of them are kind of cute, Krug. This was one from Fullerton I was talking to last week. Boop. Hey, Krug, how you doing? It's Ralph again. This is sorry to leave you so many messages, but I just wanted to say, take the tram, get to the back of the park, and work from the back to the front. Don't go from the front to the back. You can see it faster, do it faster. Everything's faster. Boop. Hey, Krug, it's Ralph again. I just wanted to say, don't go on the Matterhorn.
Oh my God. So I come in and I'm like, I tell Agnew, I'm like, "Dude, Ralph is a maniac. He left me 6 voicemails last night about Disneyland." And I go, "Listen to this." And I let him hear one. Agnew just starts laughing. He goes, I got to tell Sal. Tony Salvador. So he's like, Tony, get down here. I got something. Krueger's in here. You're never going to fucking believe it. You're never going to fucking believe what this guy's got. Then Sal comes down. He had like kind of the bad hip, and he kind of runs.
Yep.
He's like, "What's up?" He's like, "What's up, Krug? What do you got? What do you got for us?" And he's like, he's got a 6-bagger from Ralph on his voicemail all about Disneyland. And he's like, "Oh my God, that is awesome." And so we start listening to these, and these guys are rolling. Everybody's like, "Oh, Ralph."
Oh my God. And that's how Ralph, like his producer, Jennifer Violet, that's how he would communicate with her. And most people, like he would never have phone conversations. He would leave messages. That's how he rolled.
He was awesome. Terradome says, "Kipe just misspoke to me." Yeah, see, Terradome's very fair-minded. He's very fair-minded. But you know what? And Terradome says twice. Oops. Yeah. I mean, the twice part is.
Yeah, I didn't know that until tonight. That's crazy.
I didn't know that either, really, but it was the same kind of thing. But come on. It doesn't matter.
By the way,
it doesn't
Ralph
matter.
passed away. Just in case you didn't know. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. B. Bop Jones, Deshaun Jameson watch. Oh God, Niners have this corner, Deshaun Jameson.
Okay.
5'10", about 185 pounds, ridiculously good, undrafted college free agent. 49ers, John Lynch. These guys do an incredible job after the draft. They got this kid. He wears 49 today. He was all over the field.
Oh,
he's making plays. He's batting balls out of the air. PBUs left and right. Guy can flat out play. I watched his highlight reel and I thought, oh my God, this guy didn't get drafted. Played 5 years for the Texas Longhorns. Killer return guy. It's amazing.
and he probably didn't get drafted because of the height, right?
Yeah, but he's 5'10". It's not like he's 5'5".
Exactly.
I mean, he's 5'10". NFL corners are 5'10". This guy's a really good player, and he's a dynamic return guy. And I've been telling people about him. It's funny. I've been telling Grant Cohn about him for weeks. I'm like, dude, Grant, check out Deshaun Jameson. And he makes this huge play right in front of me. Grant like sees the play, goes to make a note in his thing, and then just his head starts looking around, and he looks right over me. He's like, "That's your guy." I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Yeah, seriously." I'm not good at a lot of things. There's a lot of things I don't know, but football personnel that's my jam.
Well, you've been doing it for like 30 years. I mean, I'd hope so. Yeah.
Seriously. Senior softball games. It's a blowout now. Larry's got 63 likes to Danny's 54 likes. No miracles tonight. Yeah, where are all my likes, man? Throw some likes my way. I should be blowing Danny out.
I still haven't figured out like what's a good number per show.
I don't know.
I have no
Sometimes
idea.
you get a lot of likes. Sometimes you won't.
100 is what you're aiming for? Is there like a certain
number?
number?
I mean, the more people like the show, the more it kind of jolts the algorithm, and more people can find it. But
yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, I should mention it more. If I mentioned it more, we'd probably get more likes, or
I
I was more likable. Maybe I'm not likable. Alex Breitler. Larry, can you say angels fly because they take themselves lightly?
That was
Craig, you're so cute. You get so angry.
What do you call that? The outcall, the outro?
Yeah. Trent Baalke. Larry, did you ever rip Ned Coletti publicly?
Yes.
No, I never
ripped them personally, but you've criticized
we disagreed with things.
Yeah,
we disagreed with things all the time. Yeah. I mean, we disagreed a lot, but no, Ned and I have had a really good relationship for a long time, and he understood that I was going to rip. And so, you know what he would say to me? He'd be like, "Hey, I'm giving you my cell phone. You got something you want to say that's super harsh? Dial me up. Say it right to me." And so dude. I would call him like 10 o'clock in the morning, be like, what the heck was this? And then, we talk, and then I would have his perspective. 7 o'clock would roll around, and I would say, you know what? I really didn't like this that the Giants did. And I was talking to Ned Coletti today, which always sounded great, right? To say that as a 28-year-old sports phone 680 guy. How many 28-year-old sports phone 680 guys would be like, yeah, I was talking to the assistant GM this morning. It was kind of so I would say, hey, I was talking to Ned this morning, and he kind of explained that this was their thinking. And then I would lay it out there. And then I got my criticism on record, but I also verbalized fairly his kind of retort. Mm-hmm. So we had a really good relationship, and there was a lot of trust. And there was, the thing with Ned was like, hey man, you ask a tough question, and just don't rag me and drag me, just be fair. And I said, oh, come on. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, that's easy. You two, for people who don't know this, you and Ned are both like the two of the nicest guys on the planet. So it makes perfect sense that you two are close.
But I mean, you know what? He understands me, and I understand him. Yeah. And how can you not like Ned Coletti, right? Almost everybody I've ever introduced him to likes him. Terradome says Deshaun Jameson. They're going to try to hide him. Yeah. Terradome says Krueger's a scout. He knows. Thank you. Trent Baalke says, Larry, if Marcelino McCrary Ball is a bust, I'm never listening to you ever again. Trent, You drafted Marcus Lattimore in the 4th round after he got hit by a bus. Carlo P. throwing one out for Danny. NorCal Sports Network, nothing like it.
Live from Arizona.
Carlo P., let me just say this. You wouldn't even know Dan Coach Emilio if it wasn't for the Krug show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Come on, Carlo P. Who was your first love? You may love Danny now, but who was your first love? Who brought you Danny? NorCal. Who was the person who put Danny out there? There you go.
Props to Danny for creating a brand. I'm impressed.
No, Danny's a good man. Eric L says Dan and Larry's show was fire. Oh, it's going to be fire tomorrow after the game. Check it out. Terradome. Balky couldn't pick boogers. Oh,
He was awful,
good.
man. He was an awful GM.
Trent Balky. All right. Larry, I really like Gerald Hodges as a linebacker. You know what I'm saying, Larry? He would never say Larry. He'd say, Larry. I'm like, yeah, it's Larry. How you doing? Yeah, how you doing, Larry? No, Larry. Larry. Do you hear what I'm saying, Trent? Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to call you Larry. All right. We got last one, Crystal Ball. Danny is not lazy. Danny, you ain't lazy. You ain't lazy. Mark Graves. Larry, give us I made you, Dan.
Yeah.
I brought you into this world, Coach Emilio, and I can take you out. No, I'm very proud of Dan. Very proud of Dan. The one thing I love the most about Dan is Danny can laugh at himself. He can laugh at himself. I don't like people that can't laugh at themselves. You got to be able to laugh at yourself. And that's what I've always loved about Danny. He can laugh at himself. Data 84. I trust Larry's NFL insights. He called Chris Jones and Marcus Peters before the draft. I think you were not that impressed with Kentwan Balmer too, right? Well, nobody was. I think that was a terrible pick. A couple last ones. Terradome. Lowry, like the seasoning salt. Yeah, exactly. Haruku Atoki. I was always saying to mute Dan, but he's grown on me. Dodger Dan. Yeah, we called Dan Dodger Dan for a while. Most is my favorite Dan and Larry moment. Dan, no one gives a fuck about your fantasy team. Danny, did I ever tell you that my wife thought I was cheating because my phone rang at like 1:45 in the morning? I'm like, who the freak is calling? She's like, who is that? Who's texting you? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me check. And I go, I think it's Dan Coach Amelia with a fantasy trade. It is not. It is not. I'm like, yeah, honey, it's Dan with a fantasy trade. No, it isn't. Let me see that. I show her the phone. It's like, hey, I've got 3 wide receivers and a tight end, and I need a running back. And how about this? I'll offer you these 3 wide receivers, this tight end. You can have a running back. She's like, God, he needs to get help. This one's good too from Trent Ball.
He does. He knows it. Like, I would never debate him in baseball. Like, ever.
Danny's great.
He's
Trent Ball. Dan has good baseball takes. You know, he's invested, Lowry.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. Cy, good stuff, man. What do you got cooking the rest of the week? What are you doing tomorrow on the Locked On Extravaganza?
I have Howard Beck. Have you? I'm sure you've had him on some of your other
UC
shows,
Davis.
Right? Good call. Correct. Yes, he did.
UC Davis.
He's from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And so he's a contributor now with the Locked On Podcast Network, and some snagging him. So we're going to talk. I'm going to get his perspective on the whole Warriors thing. I'm curious.
I would love if you would share with me that young lady's name and contact
Kristen
info.
Peak.
Yeah, I'd love to have. I'd love to try to have her on.
It should be one of my top tweets. Just promoting that she came on the show today at Dog Surf Roadshow. And
Very
she is like I've been hyping her for years, man. Because back Rick and I started the Rick Barry Show back in like 2019, 2020, somewhere around there. And she was one of the first guests we brought on. And I remember seeing her on another show and thinking to myself, okay, this person, she knows what she's talking about, right? And we brought her on, and like Rick was blown away, and he's not easily impressed.
Yeah.
And then I remember her telling us, she was very adamant too. She's like, don't do the Wiseman thing. She goes, I'm telling you, like I would not go with James Wiseman. She wanted LaMelo Ball, and she was absolutely right in hindsight. And literally almost every single suggestion she's made when it comes to draft picks has been completely on point, man. And I've given in. Like certain people you trust, and like she makes me look good by following her opinion. So yeah, Kristen Peak is her name. Strongly recommend getting wrong.
All right, brother. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to all the sponsors. Thanks to everybody who joined in tonight. We are at 18,678 subs. Hit like and subscribe. Until next time, we're out. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Careful.